move for posting, please.
The agenda was posted on Thursday, April 24th, 2025 at 3:55 p.m.
Thank you. This time, let's stand briefly for a moment of silence, and we'll have Veteran Service Officer Steve Hernandez lead us in the pledge.
Please join the pledge. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I take the pledge.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, if there's any members of the public who want to speak to the court on business matters, please do so at this time. Seeing none, we will go to acceptance of county department head report. Oh, excuse me, I'm way ahead of myself on that. Right? We want to, before we do that, I want to go to items F1A, the construction progress update. Urban Construction representatives. We'll actually be on F1A and F1B.
Any parents threatened y'all for blocking that road off over there?
Not yet.
That's good. Must be going pretty good then.
I've heard a few honks, but yeah, I don't think that was, they were acknowledging us. Okay. All right, good morning. Thanks for having us. So I think first I'll start with, like Judge just said, so kind of a basic project update, just to kind of refresh everybody's mind. So last time we were at the court, we got our IGMP number 1 authorized, which allowed us to start work. So our official first day of work on the project was February 24th, 2025. And so after we got awarded and our GMP number 1 was accepted, so we issued contracts. So currently we have on our team right now that's actively working on the site. So we have a selective demolition subcontractor, we have a concrete subcontractor, our structural steel subcontractor for all the new structural steel, a mechanical sub, an electrical sub, a plumbing sub, and an elevator sub, as well as we have a sub doing some specialty structural reinforcing work that's fiber reinforced polymer wrapping that we have to do the existing structure. All those gentlemen and all those firms are on board and actively working right now. So I'll kind of walk through some pictures and we can talk about a little bit of progress of the work. So I tried to go take some pictures before and after. It's kind of hard to discern. So the left side picture is what the jail looked like. This is up on level 2, what it looked like before we started. Since we've started work, we've gone through, as part of the selective demolition work, in order to install those fiber reinforced polymer wraps, they have to adhere to the structure. We went inside every concrete surface, the underside of every deck, down a couple feet on every column. We blasted all the existing paint off so we could get that. So if you kind of look at the pictures, you can see walls are gone, old electrical light fixtures, piping fixtures, that's all been removed from the facility, and all the concrete surfaces are nice and clean and ready for the FRP work. The FRP sub will actually start his work next Monday. He mobilizes, and then we'll begin the application of all the FRP work. Most of the wrapping that we're talking about is a lot of these beams that you're looking at have to get wrapped on 3 sides. There are some slab deck areas we have to wrap in certain areas. Basically, all that does is increases the structural load carrying capacity of that concrete floor is what the FRP does when we do it. Some other pictures, you can see another shot down in the existing jail area. Again, all the surfaces have been blasted. MEP items have been removed. Masonry walls have been taken out. If you look back in the distance on the right-hand picture, there's the old mechanical airway shaft that used to come. It goes basically from level 2 all the way to the roof level mechanical rooms. All those masonry walls, stairs, railings, all that's been taken out. Kind of picture 3 and get kind of a zoomed in picture what we're talking about. This was a lot of the painted surfaces on the existing underside of the structures, what it looked like all over the old jail. It's all nice and clean, blasted off, back to clean concrete and ready for our structural enhancement work. Down in the basement, so obviously the old jail areas, the old MEP areas, the old kitchen, file storage areas.
Good meals there.
That's been completely wiped out, all the MEPs out. The only thing that's left is some of the remaining electrical panels right now that's keeping power onto the facility. We are about, actually our guys are meeting with Encore on site right now. So out behind the historic courthouse where there was the old chiller pad for some of the old mechanical equipment, that's been removed. We're about to install 2 new temporary transformer pads because we need to get there's 3 existing transformers. One serves the courthouse, one served the old jail, and there's another transformer that served the county facilities building as well as the annex building. Our building actually expands out into the footprint of those, and part of the project, we put in new electrical service, which ends up across Fifth Street. But until we're ready for that, we have to relocate those transformers temporarily to keep power to the courthouse and the annex building, temporary power to the jail, and keep power to the facilities building. So sometime in May, those transformers will get relocated once we install some new temporary transformer pads. And then we can take, all electrical power will be off the jail at that point, if that makes sense. You're seeing some of the trenches in there. So what that is, we had to take out floor areas. We got to go down, take out some of the underground plumbing that's getting replaced. So that's kind of what you're looking at in some of those pictures. Here's kind of the old facility side of the building where they had maintenance shops and storage bins. Back in the background of the picture on the left was the old fire pump system for the project. Chilled water systems came in underground and through the wall. All that chilled water piping has been removed now, which you're looking at in the right-hand picture. Up in the, kind of here in the middle of the picture, that's where we've capped off the old chilled water services, so they're terminated right now. When we start the new HVAC installation work, that's exactly our point of connection where we'll take off and then run new chilled water lines to feed all the new mechanical equipment. Something else you're seeing in the basement, so there are 8 structural drilled piers that we have to install as part of the new foundations. To install, I think we've talked in the past about having to put new steel columns from the basement all the way to the top of this building, and the new steel trusses up on levels 3 and 5 to open up the floor plate of the courtrooms to take out some more structure. So there's 8 piers in the basement that support some big concrete foundations, and then our steel takes off from there. We've got 5 of the 8 foundations complete as of today. They're drilling number 6 right now. So hopefully if things go well this week, maybe early next week, we'll finish the last 2 of the drilled piers that are in the basement, and then we're into the structural foundation work. Another thing I didn't say, so we have submitted on and we've got approvals on, so we have structural steel in fabrication right now. So as soon as this concrete work completes, we'll be in a position here. We think we're targeting June to start the new steel erection in the basement. So those steel columns are in fabrication right now, as well as some other miscellaneous metals fabrication. So we should roll right in from this concrete work into new steel erection. So we still do have a combination of selective demo finishing and then new steel, new actual work happening simultaneously right now. This is just looking back towards the old Sally Port down there. We've installed a temporary construction ramp to access it. And then basically things have been taken out and cleared out. Ceilings are gone. Kind of on the outside of the envelope, I think we had talked in the past. So during design and discovery, it was found out that the existing masonry which is backed up by CMU. There was no fluid-applied air and water barrier, waterproofing, protecting the inside of the building. So as a result, we're taking the entire veneer off the building, so you can start to see that that operation has started. It's actually on Columbus now, and it advanced to the corner. They're actually down toward, they're approaching this corner right now on Columbus. And then as soon as our drilled pier work, which we're accessing through the lower Sallyport area with the equipment and the concrete in and out of the building, once they finish those last couple piers, we'll turn the corner and continue down with removal of all that brick veneer on the alley side up against the county facilities building, if that makes sense. So that seems to be going well. You can see what it looks like opened up here, actually above the old Sallyport off Columbus. We've taken out the interior CMU wall and the exterior brick veneer. What this is when we build this new steel structure out here that launches out towards Columbus. These are the floors that we'll tie into, and that will become an extension of the new lobby space, if that kind of makes sense, to orient everybody where we're at within the building. A few other shots inside. So we do have our elevator sub. TK Elevator is on site as well. This is the old elevator machine room. All the elevator equipment is out of there except for the couple machines. They're in the process starting at the top. They're taking out all the elevator equipment, rails, all that, working their way down. Once they get down, that'll clear the shaft. They'll pull the weights, and then they'll take out the two elevator machines so that we have clear hoistways, because one of the hoistways goes away, and then the other hoistway remains and becomes the location for a new staff elevator in the final design. And then there's a third elevator that accesses over at the little bridge connector here on the backside of the historic courthouse. So they'll do the demolition and removal of these two elevators, and then we'll remove that two-stop elevator over there and kind of complete that work. Here's kind of another shot at the basement. So this, if everybody remembers, this previously was kind of the kitchen area, which turned into the file storage areas where there was a lot of high-density storage. So you can kind of see all that's been taken out. All the MEP services are out, walls are out, floor's been removed, and these are some of the areas. If you look at the picture on the right, you'll see a couple of the additional drilled shaft foundations that have been drilled and placed. And this is a shot of those mechanical shaftways that I was talking about that exists. This is basically level 2 all the way up on the building. This is where on levels, so this is the underside of level 3 right here. So this is where the new steel columns are off either side of the picture that we have to launch all the way up. New steel trusses get launched across the building in front of those. Once those steel trusses and columns are in place, we can take out those remaining columns and that remaining structural beam there, and then that becomes the open floor plate for the courtroom space, if that kind of makes sense. So that's really the next step, is to get our FRP installed on the concrete and then get our structural steel and our trusses installed, and then we'll be ready. That'll be the last demolition that we perform on the project. So that all seems to be going pretty well. So that's kind of the current update of where we're at since February 24th. Like I said, our next big milestones are to finish up our drill pier foundations and then hopefully start our steel erection on the inside of the building sometime in June. No. And I think since then, kind of the final update to all that, obviously, we presented last fall our IGMP #1. So if everybody remembers, the design team produced the construction documents in 2 packages, which they called Volume 1 and Volume 2. Volume 2 has since been issued by the design team, which constitutes the entirety of the construction documents for the jail conversion project. We've, since that time, have bid all that work out to the subcontracting community, so we have full-blown bids on the entire jail conversion project right now. Over the past, I think we took bids on April 10th. Since then, for the past 2 weeks, continuing into this week, we've been doing bid and scope review meetings with all the various subcontractors. So we've gotten through what we call our critical or our core subs that we need to get on board right now to kind of continue with the flow and continue with the schedule. So they're what is the subject of our IGMP #2, which we presented to the court. We've probably got another 2 weeks of finishing the balance of our bid and scope review meetings with the balance of the subcontractors on the project. And then we'll be ready to come back to the court with our IGMP number 3, which when we submit that will be the GMP, the guaranteed maximum price for the entirety of the judicial center or the courthouse conversion project, if that makes sense. And we'll be prepared to do that. Like I said, we'll finish our meetings in the next couple of weeks. So however that falls out with a subsequent court meeting, we'll be ready to come back within the next month and finalize and present that full-blown GMP. I do have some, when we get to that point, I can share what, we do have a projection of where we think we're gonna end up relative to some of our original budgeting and then our revised budgeting that we've, have presented at various court meetings, so I can talk about that at some point.
Okay, well, that's of interest for sure.
Okay, yes, sir. I figured it would be, so I got my sheet. I think, so I don't know if you want me to talk about that now and then we can go into IGMP at number 2 or how you want me to do that. I'm prepared to either way.
Why don't you go ahead and talk about it right now?
Okay.
Briefly.
So I think, I went back and pulled up some slides. So this was original budget slide when we.
Can they blow that up? And is there any way that they can, that the, in there can blow all this up? Get rid of the
Split.
split screen? There.
All right, so after we were originally hired as a construction manager, we had some initial design meetings, and we had about 7 concept floor plans. And so the question was asked when we first got hired, based on those 7 plans, what do we think the value of this project is? So we put together our, what we call a ROM budget, a rough order of magnitude cost. We presented that back to the court. This should be one of the slides from a presentation that we did in March of '24. We thought this project would land somewhere between $47.8 and $59.8 million. Since that time, the design advanced. I think we came back to the court in November of last year based on updated design development documents before they issued the final construction documents in their 2 packages. We refined that budget based on the advanced design. I think a couple of the big things that were discovered during design were when we originally budgeted the project, we were gonna salvage all the existing veneer, but because of a waterproofing issue, that's where the veneer got brought in. And then once they got into their actual detailed, the design team I'm talking about, got it in their detailed floor planning, they realized there wasn't quite enough square footage within the existing footprint of the old jail, so they came up with the concept of doing the building extensions to create additional lobby space to free up program space in the old jail, as well as we had to create an additional building element that we have to build between the old jail and the county facilities building, which is a 5-story structural element, houses a judge's elevator, a staff elevator, electrical, mechanical rooms. So that basically added square footage to the project. So based on that, last November, this was actually end of September that I think we presented to the court. Yeah, this was end of September that we presented to the court at a meeting in November of last year. Based on that, our refined range for what we thought this would end up would be $55.8 million to $58.8 million. Basically, we still, that upper end of the budget range was preserved. We just started trending closer to it because of the additions and scope revisions. So with all that being said, based on the actual construction documents, our actual bid efforts, we think we're gonna end up between $55.5 and $56.5 million as a total GMP. So about 3.5%, I think, or, obviously several multi-million dollars below our upper end of the budget range, but that's where we're trending right now. We still have a whole series of bid and scope review meetings to confirm to make sure our numbers are solid. But again, anywhere from that 55.5 to 56.5 million for the jail conversion project is where we think we'll land. So we feel good about the numbers. We feel good about the bids. We got super interest. We feel good about the quality of the subcontractors that proposed on it. We're just doing our final reviews to make sure which members are right for this particular project and
Are you
establish
finding
those.
that many of the subs are the same people that you used at the base?
They are. There's some new ones, some different ones, but
It just gives me comfort knowing if you're comfortable, they've already done one project very well for us, and so that's the only reason I'm asking.
we feel good about, like I said, the second package. So obviously our key subs for this second package is obviously gonna be our mason. So our mason work, there is a little bit of traditional CMU masonry, a little bit of exterior brick, but the majority of the envelope on the new building is what they call a thin limestone veneer system. So you got 2-inch thick limestone panels in various finishes that comprise the majority of that exterior veneer. You do have a series of metal panels, accent metal panels at certain areas, and then aluminum and glass windows and then there is some brickwork down on level 1 to bring the brick and tie the facilities back together is what the design teams come up with. So they're a key subcontractor for us. Our site work and site utilities is pretty it's complicated on this project, especially on the alley side of things, the new underground electrical that we have to launch from the backside of the old jail all the way down and across Fifth Street there. I mean, you're talking excavations that are in the 10 to 20 foot depth range to get that electrical underground in, pretty complicated type work. We feel good about that. They're a critical sub, so we really feel good about the people that we've.
Jeff, let's don't lose a deputy down in that trench.
We'll make sure it doesn't happen.
All right.
So, yeah, and the good thing is we've got great local participation with this bid effort. I mean, bid package 1, we had 5 local subcontractors. We had the 3 non-local subcontractors were kind of some of the specialty work. Elevator, it's not a company that has a presence really in Waco. The FRP structural wrapping work was kind of a specialty that we had to get from a subcontractor in the up in the Dallas area. So we feel good about the core guys that are doing the demolition, the concrete. All of our MEP subcontractors are local. I think we'll have a great local presence with once we finalize who we're bringing on board. So, I mean, that makes us feel good because, like I said, we know the folks that we're working with. We know the quality of the work that we're going to get, and they have a vested interest in the project, in the community. So,
Okay, any questions regarding that? All right. So just to get it out of the way on items F1A, the report, is there a motion to approve that report for recording purposes?
So move.
Second.
There's a motion made and second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Pass. All right. Under F1B is discussion or action on approval of interim guaranteed maximum price proposal package number 2 and approval of the addendum number 2 to construction manager at risk agreement.
right. So, yeah, go ahead. Yes, sir.
That was my question. Do we need to approve this today? Is this?
This is so we can go ahead and execute the contracts with them because we need them to progress the schedule. We need to engage these guys.
Okay. I didn't know if it was final. It didn't sound like it was completely finalized.
So we're doing.
We've got one more to present once we finish our bid and scope review meetings. We haven't vetted all the subcontractors and all the values of the bids to produce the final GMP. So this IGMP number 2 is
So you'll
just-
bring us a third?
That's correct.
I remember you saying that. Okay.
Yes.
All right, you'll bring us a third.
In a couple
one of
weeks.
these. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So
Like I said, at the end of the day, we expect.
I make a motion to approve that, motion to approve the addendum.
Second.
Okay. You didn't want to hear the presentation? There's a,
Is there a presentation?
We can just talk through it briefly, just so
Okay, I thought
we're
you-
on the same page.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So really what this IGMP number 2, so some of the key critical work that we got to bring on board is, so really what the dollar values represent are scope of works for the masonry and stone cladding. There's a very lengthy procurement process, so in order to be ready to start hanging stone next spring, we need to get that subcontractor on board. So that scope of work, the waterproofing, aluminum composite metal panel work, really this is, everyone in this IGMP number 1 basically takes care of the site work, site utilities, and the entire envelope of the building. So the aluminum and glass guy, subcontractor, the stone cladding subcontractor, the roofing subcontractor. Those guys are reflected, the aluminum and glass subcontractor, and then our cold form metal framing, metal stud subcontractor, which makes up that makes up the entire envelope of this facility, are the key subcontractors that are reflected in the scopes of works and the budgets for our IGMP number 2. There were also, there were bid items in this second package that the design team produced because their design changed slightly that impacted some of the MEP subcontractors that we brought in IGMP number 1. So there was a slight reconciliation effort to get what they bid in package 1 to match with what the current final design ended up being. It affected placement of some equipment, some equipment selections, duct routing for the mechanical guys, pipe routing, things like that, because some of the room layout changes. So that is all reflected in this IGMP number 2. And I think with that being said, so our proposed requested IGMP number 2, which you see kind of at the bottom of the page, is this $18,783,038. And what that means is that gets added to our IGMP number 1, and then we're projecting, like I had discussed earlier, our third IGMP. We should be in the $11.6 to $12.5 million range, which when you add those three numbers to get together, gets you to what I was discussing earlier, the $55.5 to the $56.5 million total GMP for that entire scope of work. So that's where we're at today.
So then voting today to approve addendum number 2 allows us to start all of this above in IGMP number 2, allows you to start getting all of that ordered and
Yes, sir.
in the production line.
That allows us to then go to finalize and negotiate and get subcontracts executed, get procurement activities, submittal activities started. Yes, sir. That's why they're critical.
Sure.
Project.
Right.
Okay.
Call for the vote.
Did we have a second? Did you get a second?
Second.
Okay. All right. No other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. Thank y'all.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you,
All right.
gentlemen.
Guys, appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now we'll move to the much anticipated report from Francis Bartlett.
What number is that?
Yep.
That would, I'm gonna do D13B first.
D13?
Yes.
Hang on there. Let me find D. That comes after C.
Used to when I was in school.
D13. Okay, there you are.
So I've passed out the bound copy of our annual comprehensive financial report for FY '24.
Thank you.
We don't prepare a whole lot of the bound copies just as they get pricey, but if anyone wants an additional copy or anyone that is listening, so the PDF is found on the county website under the auditor's office page. You can also find all the prior year's reports as well for reference. So just to give a little, and this will be a very condensed, I know this report's thick, but this will be a condensed presentation, don't worry. So this report, the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, which we refer to as the ACFR, it is our final set of financial statements. They must comply with the accounting requirements set by the GASB, which is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. And the purpose, of course, is to be a transparent set of financial statements that, of course, cover all county finances for that fiscal year. There are 3 sections in the report. I know it will take a lot, if you sit down and go through it, but the 3 main sections are the introductory section, then there's the main financial section, and then there is a statistical section at the end. And so, high level, that is the 3 sections of this report. The order of those sections, what we include in each of those, and how it's presented, that is all dictated and mandated by governmental accounting standards. So our office, the auditor's office, actually puts together the report, and then our outside auditors, which are Patillo, Brown and Hill, they do a very lengthy audit on our financials, and then they issue an opinion on our financial statements. And so in the report, you'll find their opinion letter on page 11 of the document. And so that the second paragraph in that independent auditor's report, it states that in their opinion, that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects, the respective financial position of the county. And so that is the opinion that we want to receive, and they have
Good
signed
job.
off on it.
Yeah, bet it is.
And so, after this is all compiled, we have our audit opinion. We submit our report to the GFOA, which is the Governmental Finance Officers Association. And they review our report, and if we have complied with all governmental accounting standards, they will issue us a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting. Of course, they have just received this, so we have not gotten word back on that as of yet. But we did in the recent months get the certificate for last year's report for 23. And so that was the 39th consecutive year that the county has received that
Be
award.
suitable for framing.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And that certificate's on page 5 of the report, and the certificate for last year.
Oh, okay.
So that's just a little high-level information about the report. Just stop me if you have any questions. And I say this every year, we could go through this for days, and I would be happy to if you ever want to set up workshops for that.
It'd be right up your alley,
But
wouldn't it?
I will touch on some very high-level information. Also, just individually, if you have questions or you want to go through it, just let me know. I can come to each of your offices and answer any questions you may have or look at it together.
Thank you.
Always happy to do that. Let's see. So I'm just going to start talking about the financial statements and why they're put together the way they are, and then we'll look at some highlights of those statements. So there are two sets of financial statements, the main financial statements. One is what is referred to as the fund financial statements. And so those are found on page 35 and 37. And so page 35 and 37, here, Judge. And so those look like what we look like through the year. You see your funds there, you see revenues and expenditures.
A lot of help.
And so page 35, 37, those are what are called the fund financial statements. So it lists all of your major funds, and then there's a compilation of all other governmental funds on the far right. And so on one page, that is all county financial information, governmental funds, all in one snapshot. So a lot of information there. These financials do not include any type of long-term debt, long-term assets, any long-term receivables like fees receivables. And so these are very specific that they don't include those things. I know this is very small up on the screen, but if you, on page 35 in the book, if you'll see there, like the first column on the left is of course the general fund. And so you'll see there at the bottom, you'll see the fund balance of each fund. And so general fund at year end was a total fund balance of 102 million roughly. And then of course above that, you'll see how that fund balance is broken down. So what it's being held for, and so just to kind of show you how that is set up there. And so then if you look all the way across, you'll see that total governmental fund balance is right over 195 million. So in the very far right column. And so that is all of our constitutional funds, our statutory funds, grant funds, all of that pulled together. That was our fund balance as of September 30th, 2024. Any questions before we keep going?
Debt service would be all of our bonds that we,
Correct.
Yeah.
So that is the fund that collects ad valorem taxes in order to, yes, pay our debt service.
debt service.
Yes.
Unrestricted investment earnings. That's, what, on page 34?
34. Yes, we haven't got to that one yet, quite yet.
Okay.
But that is.
If you're going to, that's, I
Yes,
understand.
no, but that is just our investment, our interest income for the year.
Okay, that's a lot.
It is. It's fantastic. And so then, that's our fund financials. And then the other set of financials are what are called government-wide. And those are found on page 33 and 34. And this is what Commissioner Jones was just asking about. So page 33 and 34, government-wide statements. And so these present the financial position of the county as a whole, the operating results as a whole. We pull all the government funds together, and then it also includes our proprietary funds, which are our self-insured health funds. So it's pulling all of that together, and where does that look like as a whole? It's meant to be very similar to the financial statements of a private sector business, and so it'll look more similar to that. These financial statements do incorporate long-term debt, capital assets, all of our receivables, either liabilities or assets related to our pension plans and our OPEB plans. And so a lot is in there into one compiled column. And so if you look at the bottom of page 33, that is our net position number. So net position is very different from our fund balance. Very, very different. And so fund balance is what we're always looking at. What is remaining in our accounts, at year end. But net position, that is different in that is representing the difference between the assets and liabilities, but it also includes that debt. It includes the long-term receivables. And so what it's doing is allowing us to show it really measures the financial health of the county and shows us what resources we have for the future. And so it's accounting for, we own this much in capital assets, we own a building, but we also owe debt on it through, use of a bond issuance. And so it is including all of that, and then is a very good indicator of how are we using our resources, and what do we have tied up in debt versus what do we have tied up in assets. And so that, like I said, one number, whole financial report, that's one number for someone to glance at and really see what the financial condition of the county is. Your fund balance could be extremely high, but if it's all eaten up with debt and other things, liabilities for pensions and OPEB and things like that, this is netting it all together. So.
Back to what Commissioner Jones was asking about unrestricted investment earnings.
Yes.
Are you through talking about that, or did I have to ask a question now?
Sure.
Does arbitrage affect any of that? Do we owe money for,
So
and where does that show up?
So if it's determined that we do owe arbitrage, which we did this past year, it gets backed off of the revenue number, so it wouldn't be included there. And it just, we reclass it from revenue into a payable to the IRS.
Okay.
Yeah, it nets out.
So it wouldn't be included.
It's a deductible, like from a tax statement. I mean, we don't pay taxes, but it's a deductible. You expense it against your revenue, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Correct.
What is our, I'm seeing several OPEB numbers here. What do we owe on the pension plan right now?
So on the pension for TCDRS, and there's in the notes to the financial statements, there's a long explanation of what makes up the amount. But for the pension liability, we're currently sitting at a net liability of right over 30 million. The balance as of the previous year was 38 million. So that is coming down some, and of course it's linked to you know, the payments that we're pushing into that account if we make additional payments, as well as the economy
Yeah,
and what the market looks like.
right, which we've, before paid ahead,
Yes, sir.
so,
I think we've managed that pretty good considering where we started.
yeah, we look at it kind of towards the end of our budgeting process, and when we can afford it, she can calculate what we save by making additional contributions in there, so a decision will be made at that time.
And a detail of that number, it starts on page 78, just in case, I'm gonna go and it has all of the actuarial assumptions that are used to come up with that number, and deferred inflows and outflows of resources, and that's how they calculate.
And like you said, that's influenced by the investment return of the overall fund. They manage it all in a big global.
Correct. And so they try best to say, you know, if today, if you paid out all plans, this is,
Yeah.
you know, this is what would be
And they,
as of today.
They just sent out, here, not too long ago, they sent out financial performance of the retirement fund in there as well, so.
Did you notice, Judge, what percent funded are we? It's gotta be fairly high.
No, I didn't know. But the return was good, much better than what you get in a 20-year bond or anything, you know.
And then, you know, pension and OPEB are the two big ones that you'll see on there. And OPEB, of course, is the insurance that's covered for retirees that retired or that were employed before a certain date, that were grandfathered into that program. So that is what is included in the OPEB amount. Currently, that is all
So
that's included.
that inactive employees entitled, they're just not at age yet to get the benefits for TRS? I mean, for ERS?
Correct. So it incorporates employees that are currently employed as well. And
963 there on page 79, if you want to look at that, I'm just asking.
oh, no, you're good. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, for the pension plan for TCRS.
Yeah.
So yes, the 963 would be employees that aren't current, of course, active employees, but at some point can.
Yeah, they
Pay down their
left, they
retirement.
left us, I guess.
Yes, sir.
They still have something in the fund. Okay.
So that then on page 33, again, just the balance sheet that brings you down to the end result, which is our net position for the county. On page 34, just the following page, so this is just, of course, like a revenue expenditure kind of statement. It's referred to as the statement of activities. Let me pull it. And so you'll see here, it also, of course, comes down bottom line to that net position number of roughly $40 million. And so that is a change. You'll see there, it looks forward beginning to ending net position. So our net position increased about 19 million between 2023 and 2024. So good indicator there when someone views our financial statements for whatever purpose it may be, to see that net position increasing year over year, and then 19 million, very large increase in 2024.
Like bond rating agencies.
Correct.
Look at that.
Correct. Those are numbers that someone's eyes can go to very quickly, and they look at that, and a lot to dig into, but
Yeah.
good indicators there. I did want to kind of dwell on this statement for a second. And so this, I don't know how to zoom in over here on the PowerPoint, but you'll see there on in the top section in the left column, you'll see expenses by function. So this one is, general administration, you have public safety, conservation, health. And so those are the expenses for each of those functions for the year. Again, because these are the government-wide statements, these include depreciation expense. They include increases or decreases in long-term liabilities and assets. And so that is really the total. Those aren't just the operating expenses that you're approving through budget every year. Everything is included there long-term. And so you'll see their total expenses of $213 million. When you walk across, those middle three columns are the revenues that are actually generated by those functions. So you'll see charges for services, and then you have money that's coming in through granting agencies. And so, of course, a lot of our functions do not generate revenue. It's mandated, of course, that we provide these services for the county, but there is no revenue being generated to fund those functions. And so when you walk across, that very far column shows you the net expenditures that are exceeding the revenues generated through that function. So you see there that there is I hate to use the word deficit, but a difference there of $112 million. And so then that's where we come in and say, how do we fund this? How do we fund these? And so that's where we look at countywide revenues. So then below that top section, you'll see general revenues. And so those are revenues that are used to fund all of the functions of government that we do not have revenue coming in for. And so, of course, property taxes, number one, biggest source of revenue, sales tax. And we'll look at that here in a second. Sales tax always increasing year after year. Some other taxes, and then like Commissioner Jones pointed out, those investment earnings. And so a little over $11 million. So I think that's a really good indicator that our treasurer, who is our investment officer, is, working very hard to invest those to the best of his ability. And so those are the revenues that are not actually tied to a function, but they're the revenues that we have to keep collecting in order to provide these services through these functions for the county. If that makes sense. And again, just kind of walking through, like I already mentioned, so the change in net position for the year was about $19 million. Ending net position about 140 million. Okay. And any,
Francis,
yes, sir.
educate me on the public safety. How are we earning $18.5 million, or what are we?
So, through fines
Fines.
and fees, yes.
Okay.
Does that include the revenue from the PFC and all that, the Jack Harwell Center? And
Yes, so that would as well. So this is
yeah.
kind of all
That's
inclusive.
your big, that's the
Big
big,
ones.
that's the big driver
Like
of
the
that.
federal
of that
government
amount.
pays us and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
Yeah.
That number has gone down since you retired though, DL.
I know that.
So you have fines and fees. Anything coming through that you could directly tie to those functions is in that. And so, like you mentioned,
One-man dragnet.
housing revenue for the facilities, fines, things like that. Okay.
Well, at least crime pays for somebody.
For us, I guess, so the McLennan County.
Then just to step back a little bit. So again, I'll get away from the government-wide numbers because now I just want to focus on the governmental funds. And so not incorporating depreciation and long-term liabilities. What does our fund balance look like and how has it changed? And so these are our three types of funds that we report on. And so your governmental funds, of course, that are all your statutory constitutional funds, grant funds, all of those funds that are providing sources for operating, those are all condensed in that one column right there. And so you'll see that the fund balance walks forward in total, about $5 million from one year to the next. The proprietary funds, that includes our three self-funded insurance funds, health, vision, and dental. And so you'll see there it's dropped a little bit, but of course we made some changes in the contributions that the county is funneling into the proprietary funds based on what HUB, our consultant, had recommended we do. And so he saw that rather dropping. And so we've made some changes in 2025 to make sure that that doesn't fall too low, but again, stayed pretty constant there. And then fiduciary funds, I went ahead and put that on there. Fiduciary funds are custodial type funds, minor trust accounts, inmate trust accounts, seized funds, money we hold for the state that hasn't been transferred to the state yet. So that's money that will never be ours. We just have to account for it and hold it. And take care of it. And so, again, just to kind of put that into perspective on the amount of funds that are sitting in our accounts.
Are those funds invested, or are we just holding them? the fiduciary?
No, they're,
They're not invested?
no, well, I say that, there are some, like seized funds. A seized, if there's a pocket of money that's seized, it sits in its own bank account, it's accruing interest until
accruing.
that case is completed. And so it kind of depends, it just depends on the nature of the fund. And I said that, no interest. And of course, all your trust accounts as well, so all your minor trust accounts that the county clerk and district clerk hold on to for the life until someone ages out at 18. And then just looking at governmental funds, so if we just take that column out and then just break it out into the different classifications. And so just so you could see where those changes are actually happening. You'll see a sharp drop in permanent improvement fund, but that is because that is just primarily bond proceeds that we were holding and then we've been spending it down. Primarily will be the downtown jail project. And so that will continue to come down over the years. But again, just that LPPF, the Local Provider Participation Fund, that one will always be different. It just depends on the timing of when they pull the funds, so. Okay. And so going back to that net position number, again, this was just, I just wanted to show just how that has changed over the years. And we did have a little drop last year, but again, just based on the market conditions, when we issue debt and when we're spending the debt, that's going to affect that number. But you can see there 2024 getting up to 140 million. So a lot of movement since in the last 10 years on our net position number.
I think this report and the judge did a fantastic job. So that looks really good. It's going up.
It'd be real interesting if you go back to 2011
Yeah.
and look at it from that point.
Yeah.
I can pull those for next time.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I said I'd be brief, but I keep going.
No,
So,
it's, keep going, good.
so then if you look at, I know I'm kind of jumping from topic to topic, but if you look at revenues by source for our main funds, so main funds are the constitutional funds, funds that are collecting ad valorem taxes. So our general fund, our debt service fund, and then our permanent improvement fund that's funded by the M&O tax rate. And so this is just the breakdown in those three main categories. And we keep seeing sales tax, of course, increase each year. And so this chart, the green and red side is getting closer and closer to getting to, 50%. I hope, at some point we'll show it, and that blue section will be less than 50%. And so relying on those other sources of revenue and tracking those and seeing those go up so that we're, of course, lessening the burden on the taxpayers by collecting those other sources of revenue. And then because that chart keeps changing over the years, of course, then that has helped and allowed, and just also being conservative with the budget primarily, but that is just allowed the court to adopt, continue to decrease, the cents on, that are being taxed on individuals. Of course, the assessed values have gone up, and we know that, but just the rate has, of course, come down quite substantially in the last 10 years.
Good indication what economic development can do for the county.
Correct. And this is just a view of our governmental funds and what functions those funds are providing services for. And so, of course, we know our biggest are public safety and then general government, which is servicing all those other functions. But again, these are all services that are, providing a benefit to the county in some way or another.
Then employee expenses would be over here in this general government fund.
So the personnel, the way the functions work for reporting, if it is personnel related to public safety, it is in that piece.
Okay, so it's, yeah,
So general government would be personnel related to HR, to the auditor's
Okay.
office.
good.
Anything not public service.
So those are true expenditures, the whole expenditures for those functions.
Kind of net, yeah.
In general fund, we update this each year. This is just inflows, outflows, and how they've come apart, crossed over, back together. If I had pulled this some years back, there were some years that the outflows line had exceeded the inflows line. And so that can happen from time to time, but over, consistently would completely deplete our fund balance at some point in time. And you all took notice of that and of course made some changes. But we did, you can see in 2023, those lines got a little further apart. And so we made some moves you made moves rather, in adopting the budget last year to try to get those numbers closer together. And you can see that they came together for 2024. We should see it even better for 2025.
That's where we ask a lot of questions during budgeting to be sure that we adequately funded the department and not overfunded. Before there was, rat holding or whatever in the budgeting process. So when you get close, that's good. And as long as you've got mitigating factors for something that's going to change, then that's the best way to do it. But former city manager Larry Grove told me that when the red line goes through the blue line, it's like an alligator eating up the fund balance. So, I thought that was pretty good.
No, it's a very good visual.
That was exactly what happened in 10 and 11.
And if your fund balance gets to an amount that is too high, or you want it to bring it down, there's another reason that seeing that red line cross the blue line may occur and may be okay as well.
Yeah, that's true.
But keeping them just as close as possible. But you always, definitely want to have some cushion there, and because we do want to, of course, have fund balance for emergency type situations.
Not many businesses or individuals have the ability to set aside. Most people are right on the line all the time. So.
I'll tell you what I appreciate about, it would be easy in that 20 area where the red and the blue got further apart. And I think that's what maybe has got a previous court in trouble, is a knee-jerk reaction to that and lowering the tax rate too low and then getting yourself in an issue with not enough revenues to come in. And so I appreciate the way we've been thoughtful. Yes, it got a little bit further apart, but look how quickly we pulled it back together.
Because 2020 and 2021 are, whatever you look at statistic-wise, it's just a blip.
It's that same way.
I wish you could just gray it out, because that was unexplainable
Yeah, 2020 and 2021
financially.
made no sense. We had what, two people in the courthouse.
I couldn't recognize it.
Couldn't see them because they had masks on.
Yeah.
Okay, so that, of course, comparing revenues and expenditures, and then if you also look at general fund, but take that same expenditure line, but then you look at the budget compared to actual. And so, of course, the blue line is the final revised budget, and then that red line being the actual. And so this is where we worked really hard last year to try to bring these lines as close as possible. We have a very large budget, so we are going to have some difference always. We always want to come a little under budget, but not too far. And so when we see those lines getting too far apart, then we need to make some changes. We did that in 2025, and I'll talk about that here in just a little bit. But yes.
And that's where we can make some discretionary decisions regarding, the retirement fund or other things where we can invest in that.
Yes, sir.
And lower our long-term cost.
Correct.
And so good to go through that exercise.
Let's see. So this is that number, the fund balance number that we always study so hard during the summer, and just showing how that fund balance has changed over the year. So of course it needed to be brought up because you wanted to meet your goal of 33%, and we have met that, we are exceeding that. But now I think we're at the level where we want to maintain that. And so you'll see there between 23 and 24, it stayed pretty steady. And so I think we will again see not much change at the end of 2025 based on what we're seeing currently.
And one more editorial comment.
Yes.
When Francis and I and others are on the call with rating agencies, they like the fact that we've got that policy and we adhere to it, that we've got that reserve cushion, and, we can respond to almost anything that would happen, whether we like it or not. Things happen, and we're able to do it. So the soundness and safety, we get a high mark on that, which lowers our interest rate costs. So there's a return for that.
I think I'm gonna skip through some of these. This is a graph going back to the proprietary funds, so our health insurance funds. And of course, this, we've just due to the nature of the healthcare industry and what's happening out there, trying to maintain these funds. And so you'll see there, of course, that expenditures have exceeded those revenues, those contributions that we were funneling into those funds. And again, like I mentioned earlier, our consultant, recommended increasing the contributions the county was putting in to those funds. And so I predict that 2025 we'll see those numbers cross back where our inflows line will exceed our expenditures line. But we still do have, of course, a healthy fund balance in that fund. And so, which is shown here. And so this is a proprietary fund, just the nature of it for accounting purposes. We don't call it a fund balance. The technical term is net position as well. And so you'll just see here, our fund balance has decreased slightly over the last couple of years. But again, still over $6 million that is sitting in that fund as net position and can be utilized whenever needed. You're making contributions into these funds every year, but it's still our money. It's still your money. Okay. So that concludes my presentation on the financial report. I know that was very high level, like there's a whole booklet here of information, but like I said, if you want to go through and then if anybody wants to meet further for it, I'm always happy to do that and go through more detail. If there's a section you're interested in.
Looking for page, we don't actually calculate like ratios, like debt to income ratios and all in this book, but I guess, it does? I looked through it.
Yes, so those ratios are in the statistical section.
Oh, okay.
The statistical section starts on page 183. And so I was trying to see where.
Okay.
More specifically, page 193, there is a table, and it may not be exactly what you were looking for, but it presents debt service as a percentage of expenditures. There's that number.
Yeah, that's.
I think there's some other numbers throughout, but.
And those, when to see how we're doing relative to other counties and those kind of things, ratio is probably the best place to go. Your debt to income, your all those different factors. And when we wondered, we know our debt amount. So what's that relative to? Is that a positive thing, or is that we used all the money for the proper things, but you can get too much debt. And I know in banking, we would take business sectors and compare them, because you might have a manufacturer that's real small over here, but they ought to have the same ratios as far as their debt to income levels and those things. But everything I see on it is that we're in really good shape relative to other counties. And
I would
We
agree.
don't have a lot, I mean, the amount of debt that we have compared to like cities,
Yes.
some cities and counties.
Yeah.
I mean, it's relatively low.
Agreed,
From
yes.
what, from my.
It's
from my
astonishing, some of
research.
the numbers I've seen.
Well, the cities have so much more infrastructure.
Well, yeah, right. I mean,
They
they
have to put
do.
on long-term debt.
Yeah,
But they should have.
one of our neighbors has way more debt than we do.
Yeah,
County, I'm talking about county neighbor,
yeah.
so.
Speaking of debt, we had talked about issuing some debt or bonds. Were we going to do that during this fiscal year? Is that next fiscal year?
That's the plan, and,
This fiscal year?
this fiscal year.
Are we still looking at with what's happening? There's so much uncertainty out there. Is that still something we want to look at?
It's a big factor because, depending on if the legislature passes that limits our ability to sell COs, we may want to sell enough to cover what we know is the next 2 years' expenses.
Right, and do that
this year,
prior to what, September 1?
Prior to September 1, so this summer we'll be
Which is
doing
normally
that.
August, isn't it?
Pardon me?
Normally August.
Yeah, normally August, and,
Okay.
so, yeah, that's a good question, and I was in Austin yesterday, and, you know, that, I think it's very detrimental, the legislation to counties. That we shouldn't be punished because they're punishing some other entity.
One size fits all.
Yeah, and, you know, we're very transparent on what we do, and all, but, the catch is you can, if it's fully passed, COs have to go for the vote. And 70% of the vote has to pass. Well, we would never pass, we would never
No,
be able to sell.
nobody'd pass.
See, and then the other thing is the election has to be held in November during the general election, which is a high turnout. And it's more apt to have people that are just against anything and really don't know the consequences of the vote. So it's, yeah, it's scary.
That'd
Now,
be very detrimental to the economy because.
I think it will too.
So much spending is,
well, if they, you know.
yeah, there's a lot of jobs tied to these bond projects and things like that, you know?
Well, and, you know, if you cut services and you don't, you know, we have bridge replacement for us is a big deal. And, you know, we need to put that on long-term debt because those bridges will be there hopefully
Amen.
100 years.
Right.
Anyhow, that's,
Well, so much of what they're doing is geared towards a couple
Big
of the
city.
larger counties.
It is.
And we have to we pay the price for
And we fall in.
their
that-
being
fall in that
disappointed,
nest.
yeah.
it's a general hate of Harris County that's affecting us all, so.
Judge, would it be appropriate to make a couple of comments regarding this
Absolutely.
year and how it's going to affect next year?
Absolutely, it's
Okay.
perfect.
I don't mean to
No,
interrupt
you finish up. And
I was gonna,
and I will.
that was it for that item. And then, if you wanted to vote
No,
on that.
you go
And then
ahead.
the next item was 2025, where we are currently.
Okay,
So-
well, and you want to talk about that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So-
So do we need to approve this?
Yeah, I'm looking for a motion to approve, Francis' report for recording purposes.
So moved.
I'll second. Any other discussion?
Interrupt you.
No other discussion?
I
All in
appreciate
favor,
that.
say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass.
And so I think I wanted to move now into item D13A, which was just a financial update for this current year. So tomorrow will be 7 months into this fiscal year, which is crazy, but so it's a great time now. We'll start updating, these numbers now, moving forward to the end of the year and in preparation for budget discussions. And so having 6 months of data is so helpful to see where we're at and where we'll end up. And so today, I just, of course, many sources of funding that are coming in, special revenue funds and our proprietary funds and our permanent improvement funds. But today, I just want to focus on general fund because I feel like that's the one that's, it's sometimes surprising where we may end up here, and the other ones are pretty predictable. And so I just want to give you a little bit of information on general fund and where we are and where we think we'll be, and then interrupt me whenever you want to.
No, you go right
talk
ahead.
about-
I'll
So,
save my editorial item for the end.
So for 2025, so our current fiscal year, which ends September 30th, 2025, and again, just general fund, only general fund. So that left column, the original budget, when we walked out of here the last day before or after you adopted the budget, this is what we had set up. We were predicting we'd begin with a fund balance of a little over 80 million. We had estimated revenues, which included the levy related to the tax rate that you adopted. And then we had expenditures that were budgeted. We did take into account some variables last year that I think have worked in our favor, and we'll talk about that in a sec. And so then we'd come down to an ending fund balance of right under 49 million. And so that was our 33%, 32.9%. That met our fund balance goal, as we usually do. And so then, moving over to the far right column, we actually began at 9/30/24 because, of course, the year wasn't complete yet. We actually ended up about 82 million, so just a couple million more than expected. Our revenues were about 2 million more than expected, and then our expenditures we're anticipating, I'm sorry, these are estimates, of course, and then estimating to come about 7 million below budget. And so if all those things aligned perfectly, of course, they won't, and we'll keep updating these estimates, but we would come right at $60 million as an ending fund balance for the year. And that would be 39.18%. So again, just based on trends so far in the year and what we know, it will be ever-changing, of course, till the end of September.
So, if I could ask a question or make a statement,
Of
but,
course.
so this number here, it's estimated, is 6%, approximately this, so 6% of the ending fund balance, which would be, what, $18 million? Or, no, that's, well, 6% of 60 million is $3.6 million. So that's, we're going in with that kind of cushion if we're gonna end up getting back to 33%
Correct.
to apply into next year's budget.
Correct. And, you know, year after year, we've been relying on that sum to cover the increases
Yeah.
in the budget. And that eventually will catch up to us.
Right.
And so we want to try to, you know, try to get as close as we can to that 33% and not be relying on the surplus. And so I know the between 39 and 32, pretty big difference, but that is closer than we have than we've ever seen before.
We've tightened up the budgeting process, and
We've been
that's,
chasing that number for
Yes.
yeah, but
quite some time.
we've done a better job between what we budgeted, where we end up, which could cause, just remember, that tightens it up going into this.
It does.
Year, so.
It does. And I think there'll be really good data, though, to use to talk through 2026 and see what's worked and what's not, and
Yeah.
what looks like it's going
Be
in the right
interesting to
direction.
see on the ad valorem on the, I know, some of the residential's coming down a little bit this year.
We got our estimated,
Yeah.
we got our estimates, and it's up 10%.
That's
That's
preliminary.
overall.
Preliminary.
Overall,
Yeah,
preliminary.
residential is gonna be,
So, yeah, that wouldn't be,
Stagnant.
that's not, I guess, reflected in our levy or, you know, but that is all TIF, TERS,
Yeah.
everything. But I thought that was a really good, like, overall indicator of what's happening in our county, and that it's, the trajectory is really good. But we will get into
Sure, there's
some more
all that,
details.
yeah.
well, and I think
Yes, yes.
probably a majority of that 10% is new properties coming on the rolls. Just because of all the
Well, that and the cap catching up, so, there was a cap on, you couldn't increase over 10%, but let's say the increase was 13%, they were only taxed for that 10%, but the other 3 is rolled over into the next year if there's room.
If there's room, it's
Understand that
added
right?
on.
I think that's correct, and so some of that's.
Because it doesn't
catching
go
up.
over
Dustin pointed
10%,
that out to
right.
me, Yeah.
And so that just at a glance, high-level general fund, what we're estimating. So I'm just going to touch really quick on revenues and expenditures and the detail of those. So looking at revenues, I've just kind of pulled out some of the higher amounts that we see that really are making up the majority of our revenues. You'll see the bottom is other, so everything else is combined there. But this is what we had estimated last summer, and then what we are predicting we will end up with. You can see ad valorem, of course, we're right on track. We've just kept that number the same. It's hard to predict. But sales tax, the fiscal year started out pretty, it was pretty much the same. We didn't see really a whole lot of increase like we had in years past, but just the last few months, I've seen pretty substantial growth. And so we're predicting to come right about $1 million more than we predicted for sales tax which has been consistent with each year. We just keep
So how'd you come
following
up
it.
with that increase?
For sales tax?
Yeah.
So I look at the months we've collected so far.
Okay.
And
And extrapolated that out. there.
yes, look at last year's. Again, it's very hard to really come up with a
Well, the reason why I
Perfect
asked
estimate.
the question is because the city made a statement that they looked at sales tax as being flat. Now, we have sales tax for the whole county, and they've got sales tax just for the city, so maybe there's something,
maybe so.
maybe.
But I would have, if the last few months hadn't, come in already, I would have said, no, it's gonna be
Yeah,
flat. But
okay.
I saw some growth this last week.
Okay.
So, and then, everything else I think is, we have some some differences here and there. But if you look at the bottom line, I think we're right on track to collect just about $1.5 million more than we originally estimated. So
Okay.
nothing
And a
to,
lot of that's in sales.
yes.
What is the other revenues? What do you have? What's this?
So it is just all the other, you think of the,
Fees and,
Uh-huh.
back to the,
Well, you got fines and fees in there.
yes, there's a little bit of grant revenue that goes into general fund that's
Well,
not as
it's,
specific. We just have like.
It is like a
sale of
hodgepodge of so many things.
So many things.
I mean,
Um,
it's,
That's what the
I was
most
trying to
fun
think.
part of the budget is every year when we go over all those small funds that generate revenue that
Yeah, and there's 2 pages of them in the general fund. And so there are supplements, there are recovery of costs from other entities. We pay a landfill deputy, City of Waco pays us back.
okay.
I'm trying to think. Just, Commissioner said, a lot of little things that just, to look at them individually isn't very, very telling, but in total, you can see there that those have increased. Sale of culverts, sale of maps,
what
the
amount
miscellaneous revenue.
classifies its own column in there? $1 million, something like that?
How do you get your own line?
How do you get your own?
So if something really is telling, like revenue should be, we try to have a line item for each type of revenue. But when you have something you're collecting $50 in total a year, we would usually just put that in miscellaneous. It just doesn't make sense to keep it separate. There's not like a right or wrong way to do it.
But it's broken down
In the book,
the
yes.
book, it's
So
broken down.
that other
Relaxing
revenues line
beverages
is
are-
probably
relaxing
about
beverages
75
is
lines
Yeah.
put together.
Okay.
It's true.
So revenues looking good. We're on good track, not too much overestimated, and of course not below. And then I always just enjoy looking at the sales tax trend because I think it's telling in the growth of our county. I know, of course, expenses have gone up for everyone, and so sales tax will go up if spending stays constant. But I think this is a good indicator of decisions you make for economic development, but then also operating. If you're funding public safety and our county is a good place to live and work and people, again, that's showing up there as well. So I just feel like sales tax is a really good thing to watch and watch it grow. And you can see there it's, we'll be close to having it doubled in the last 10 years, probably in a couple years, I would imagine. And those percentages at the bottom are year after year.
We could get a breakdown where those sales tax come from, I guess,
From the comptroller?
yeah, from
Yes,
the comptroller.
yes.
So,
And so then, looking at expenditures for the year, so we looked at the total, what we thought we might come under budget. We look at it by department, by line item. I collapsed some just sections of expenditures, general fund wide, just to kind of get a glimpse of what's happening. So personnel there, of course, personnel is our highest percentage of expenditure. That's where, large amount of our operating expenditures. And so estimating currently, we'd come under budget in all personnel expenditures, that's salaries, elected officials, taxes, benefits, about 3.2 million. And then I summed up all things tangible, supplies, equipment, fuel, all those things that departments need to keep them operating. That's all departments together. Indigent defense is one that, in some years past, we had some years that it was we were not keeping up with it, even budgeting wise. It was just exceeding each year. We've seen that level out, and I think come up with some ways to better estimate that. And so you can see there, we're, based on current year activity so far, we're right on where we should be. And so that's where we come up with estimating we'll come about 7 million under budget for the year. And I believe that's about 4.4% under budget. So I know 7 million is a large number, but when you look at it as a percentage of expenditure. So I have one more thing and I'll be done. So I want to pull out now personnel because we budgeted for this a little different last year, or this year rather. So I'm going to let you know how that is going. So if you remember, we knew that, of course, you set salaries and positions for every department. We know that they're not going to be filled 100% or they're not going to be making 100% of their salary. It's just, we have too many positions. That's inevitable. So we talked about it a lot and ended up landing on, okay, you adopt all of the positions, of course, with the salaries, but then we're only going to budget for 96% of those costs. And so we had a 4% vacancy factor that we did not budget for. Departments still have the ability to fill their positions 100% for the whole year, and we have ones that do that. But in total, when you look at all positions, all departments together, that 4% vacancy factor seemed like that would have been a reasonable amount to leave out of the budget and then not overinflate our goal, our fund balance goal that we keep trying to meet. So total salaries, and this is just full-time employees, the full-time employees number. If you take all the salaries, it was 55.8 million. We didn't budget for 2.2 million of that expense. And so we budgeted right there, the 53.6 million. Currently, based on activity for the first part of the year, I think we're looking at expending about 52.4 million. And so that pulls us under budget about 1.2.
Good, that was a good decision.
I would agree.
That was a good decision.
I would agree. And this one, I've been really interested. I've been tracking it through the months, and so glad we were at 6 months in and we could really get a good picture. So of course, if we had not done that, it wouldn't be 1.2, it would be closer to 3.5 million estimated. And of course, when we only budgeted 96% for these full-time employees, that affected what's budgeted for Social Security and for Medicare. And so that just builds on itself. So this was just the full-time employee salary line. So I think we're on a good track there. Of course, we'll keep monitoring that through the next 5-6 months, and then can incorporate this into our 2026 budget discussion, of course, with human resources as well, and determine how you want to budget going into the next year. And so that maybe, I'm sorry.
Well, basically affected by what you net out in FTEs and plus the COLA impact, and that's what we'll be looking at.
And so we'll just, that conclude my presentation for current today.
Okay.
Didn't want to get into too much. And then like I said, we'll keep updating this information
Okay,
through the
thank
summer
you.
for you. And then I know.
All right, any comments, editorial comments?
I had one if I could, Judge.
You want me to do a more formal introduction?
No, and I want to preface it by saying, certainly it's just my opinion, and I recognize that, but knowing that the fund balance affects our budget planning for next year and plays such an important part in it, and knowing the uncertainty of the economy on what's happening, not knowing for sure what's coming out of Austin, because I've seen nothing good that comes out of Austin. I know indigent healthcare, indigent legal expenses. The budget looks like they're actually putting less money in that, or what I saw preliminarily, and all that's going to affect us. All that, I guess, is what I'm saying is moving forward, I'd like to see us be able to control spending by approving only department and official head requests that are within their budget. In other words, if they want to move within their budget line items, I understand that. But if it's outside and it's not an emergency item, if it's not emergency spending, then I think, and that includes us too, as commissioners, I would like to see us hold the line on that, send a strong message that If it's not an emergency expense, then we're not gonna approve it going through the rest of this year.
You're saying the prior year's budget, and you can move within it, but it.
That's fine. Yeah, because that's already budgeted money and it's already accounted for. If you want to move within the line items to pay for something, I have no problem with that. But coming and asking us to spend money that's going to take money away from our fund balance, which comes from that, what, 001 contingencies, countywide, so forth?
So.
What is the
Contingencies.
contingency?
Contingency's already budgeted, and so it's incorporated
It
into
is, but
how
what's
we-
not spent, it moves forward into our fund. What we don't spend
In any line item.
in any line
yes.
item, but particularly that seems to be where we always pull from when somebody comes and just asks for something. You know, if a copier goes out, if, I understand a lot of that, but if we could limit non-emergency items, and build that just builds our fund balance.
Well-
And that's what we have to play with.
The only thing, one could argue that it still is within budget because we set that,
I understand where you're coming from.
to be spent.
I understand.
Now, the only thing, Jim, and I agree with you, I think the only thing is who would define what an emergency
Yeah.
is?
Well, I think that's something we have to look at closely. If they think it's worthy of being an emergency, then we have to also agree or disagree with it. And I agree, it's built into the budget.
Including
But I
mandate.
think sometimes it's real easy just to say, I'm going to create a budget, and I know if I need to spend more money, I can just get it from there.
I was gonna say, to play off that and what Commissioner Jones had asked, so we budgeted 1.5 million in the countywide contingencies, not road and bridge, but just countywide contingencies. And we've only moved out of there about 235,000.
Which is great.
And just kind of looking at the detail, it's a lot of things, prices change from budget adoption to when they're able to purchase that. And so there's been, like you said, and those have all been vetted by you all as those are brought to you as budget
And I have no
amendments, so-
problem with that. I have no problem with.
In other words,
emergency items.
out of the control of the requester, right? If the increase was out of their control.
Exactly, yeah, and that happens a lot of times, it doesn't. But if it's just something that's a wish list or something that's shiny or new, let's hold off. Let's get that in the budget. Let's ask for that. Do a good job of putting it in our budget request. So that's all I'm saying, Judge, is that I would like to see that. I'd like to see us build that fund balance so that we can use it in our next year's budget to do what we need to do. And generally, that's, in my way of thinking, is to reward our personnel, either through salaries or health benefits or whatever. Gives us money to, I won't say play with, but some margin there.
Discretionary, yeah.
And then the other piece, and this last thing I'll say about it as well, is if that is a policy going forward, then we have to be careful and watch for folks going, well, if they're not gonna allow me to come forward and do that now, I'm just gonna bump up my
Yeah,
budget request by 3% or whatever the case
Yeah.
might be.
yeah.
So it's a,
It's a catch-22.
it is, it's
all the way
a
around.
hard
And
thing.
I commend Frances and her group, because I think they look very carefully when they start comparing budgets from year to year, department heads or officials, and look at, and making sure that's not what's happening, is that there's just last year, I requested this, so I'm gonna bump it 3%, but they didn't spend what they had the year before.
When I
That's
also,
all peeled out before we ever bring it to
And you do that, you
Yes.
do a great job of that.
and then I think credit should go, to elected officials and department heads. We've only drawn 200,000 of 1.5 million. That says a lot.
Yep. Anyhow, that was my editorializing,
Okay.
for what it was worth.
There can be something said too for, if you wanna help next year's budget by spending in this year's budget. I mean, we've done that. We've seen where that helps out.
Yeah,
also, too.
there's that, and that's in the discretionary part that we can choose, like retirement or,
Yeah.
pay ahead or those kind of things. The only thing, and I appreciate your comment, and I pretty much think you're exactly, that's a good
Well, I think
idea.
just not knowing exactly what's gonna happen with the economy worries me a little bit.
Yeah, I understand, and the only thing I'm hesitant in drawing, let's say drawing a line or making a hard statement when we hadn't gone through each item and, really looked into it, because I've got confidence that we are gonna do a good job of budgeting again, without a rule going in. And so I'm more open-minded, I guess, than, to look at, so let's see what we have before we say. But we get into the budget, that we may get a consensus that that's exactly the way we ought to do it, just what you suggested. And I'd like to get a little bit further into it.
Sure.
The other thing is the preliminary, we're working with preliminary numbers, on values. And, they generally come in conservative, but who knows? It could be, some kind of aberration that change that. So I want to see all that to know what we have to work with.
Historically, do the preliminary values, does the final values go up or down from the preliminary that we get, which you sent us? Because none of the protests have gone in yet, right?
No.
So nothing's been acted on. So historically, does it go down?
It's really varied. I don't think it's been something.
Every
that,
year's
like, you
been,
can-
I mean,
So
seems like I remember.
But usually it
most
goes up.
years it goes up just to, just.
protests are already, they've already calculated.
There's a number calculated in that.
There's a number calculated in that.
I know that.
We only expect, what, 90?
Well, 98% or 98.5% of collection, but the other thing is the protest, the mediation or negotiation protest, we know over the last many, many years about how much the appraisal district has given back. In other words, say, you're right, no, it's, we agree with you, but it's already baked in the cake, I think. Now, they could miss it, and that's why you get the final numbers. But I know last year we were worried about it, and it ended up being higher, so.
If you look, I think at those reports they send, there's one that's just totals and there's one that's like ARB predictions too. And so they just do their best to
Well, I know-
Another
estimate
thing
that.
in predicting, excuse me, one more.
No, you go ahead.
There has been a lot of success in getting manufacturers and other entities into this community, and many of them are under construction. It'd be good to know when those come online with regards to tax revenue.
Well,
And-
and so I'm just gonna mention this, and that was my question in the numbers that we got from the appraisal district, that, the TIF, there's TIF 4, that a lot of these, a lot of our industrial areas is now in, and we voted for that. I mean, that was our decision also too, to put our increment in there. Is that calculated in there? So, I mean,
Yes. I don't have it in front of me but on that front sheet, I think that it has like a breakdown on the bottom of that front sheet that shows the TIF and the TERS calculations. And that, I believe, is already calculated in those totals over on the right side. I think one of those lines backs it off to get the actual McLennan County value.
okay,
Sorry, I don't have it in front of me. I can't remember how it's put together on that sheet.
for another workshop.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's just TIF 4. There's TERS and TIFs all over the county, so
yeah,
that affect us.
Well, the main one is TIF 4 now.
yeah, that's true, that's true. Are there any other questions?
I have one
Comment?
comment
Okay.
also. I would like to think, because it seems it's gotten so much better, but the communication piece between elected officials, department heads, and the auditor's office seems to be far better now, in that they know exactly what you're wanting. And you've shared with what you don't want and the things so I really, kudos to all of the department heads and elected officials for working so close with you guys and making this budget process we've streamlined it immensely.
And I think when departments understand, the budget laws and why and how and why it's being done this way and what the line items mean and why they're put together a certain way, and that's been helpful too. But yeah, departments always try to, I know when they have a request, they've always got, for the most part, something to back that up. They feel that is something that's necessary for them to continue providing quality service to citizens.
Just a big thank you to your staff and then all of our elected officials, department
This
heads.
is remarkable.
It's a group effort.
And then, and Dustin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Mark McCliney will be here on May the 6th to go.
Yes, sir.
Who's that?
That's right. So he'll
Mark
be here.
McCliney. Excuse me, Dustin.
Sorry, Judge, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Mark will be here on next Tuesday to discuss the upcoming CO. Then on May, and to kind of get a proceed order from the court. Then he'll be back on May the 20th. We can adopt that notice of intention resolution to issue those COs. Then the calendar, proposed calendar would show the pricing and the court approving the order of sale of those on July the 15th. So we'll be working on that project list to get to him. And then he will be in court next Tuesday.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? Is there a motion to approve this report for recording purposes?
So moved.
Second.
All right, have a motion second. Any other discussion? Good discussion, thank you. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, pass.
Bet, thanks.
All right,
And
that-
Judge, if before we take a break, could we approve the check run? It's
Yeah.
item E1.
Yes, sir. Going to item D1 is a check run. We need to get that approved or no one gets paid.
Motion to approve D1.
Okay.
Second.
We avoided a mutiny. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Pass. All right, let's take a 10-minute recess.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.
Francis, thank you.
Yeah, you've got somewhere to be, don't you?
Headed to College Station.
Oh. Okay, Dustin, you wanna pick it up?
Yes, sir. And we do have one other action item, if we can take care of it first. It is E2, ratification of agreement with Festival on the Brazos for use of McLennan County Records Building parking lot. This event was held last Friday evening. We've done this in the past where we've allowed the Records Building lot for valet parking. And we'd received notice last week that they needed it, so we went ahead and asked Judge to sign the agreement. So we just need to approve the ratification of this agreement.
And we can't undo the event, it's already happened. But it was the same, agreement that we've had in the past, and it helped the community, so, it was a community-wide event. Sure. All right, what's the pleasure of the court?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and second, any other discussion? No other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass.
All right, we'll move back to the top of the agenda for item D, acceptance of county department head reports. E1 is juvenile probation. I know Colin's not able to be in court this morning, but that report is in your packet.
Okay, if there's any questions, we can forward those to Colin, and,
Judge, I would reference that he had an addendum
Yeah,
with
thank you.
his concerns at the legislative level.
yeah, I appreciate that too, and, so take those to note, and, you know, I think all of us are always ready to stand, write letters or those kind of things if we need to, and I issue a lot of them out of my office with just my signature, but we also can do resolutions and those kind of things if we want.
These two here would be extremely rough on the juvenile
Yeah.
jurisdiction.
Yeah. Okay, if there's no other questions, is there a motion to approve this report for recording purposes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and second, any other discussion? No other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass.
D2 is engineering. I'd like to call on Amy.
Amy,
Amy?
Okay,
you just do these fun stuff.
morning, Amy.
Good morning. I'm not sure how this goes because this is my first one, so am I answering questions or just giving you a brief summary, or what would you like?
Well, I've read through them, it's very thorough, it gives us a good update. Do you see any, I guess one thing, do you see any, or is there anything gonna impact this coming budget that we haven't already allowed for on these projects?
I don't think so, Judge. We have a pretty extensive project list that's in the pipeline right now. Moving forward into the future, I think we might want to think about some dedicated programs, like maybe a low water crossing replacement program, bridge replacement program, and start to put together priorities and routinely funding those things so that we keep ahead of them instead of
Right,
getting to them when they fail.
right. Well, I think in the budgeting process, there'll be probably more questions about, you know, what's out there, but also, we've had some pretty good success on holding, kind of during the year, some little retreats where we can kind of really think long-term, and that, a lot of that has to do with, you know, our plans on, it comes from, some of it comes from road and bridge, but some of it comes from engineering about what are we gonna have to look at in the future, and do we put that on the list to add to our bond sale, you know, what we're gonna, utilization of bond funds and those things, so we'll have an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I had talked to Dustin briefly about putting together some sort of a long-range capital program for what we would think you would want to consider.
Are you able to, early on, you're kind of new in this piece of what you're doing, of working with road and bridge folks, or getting to see any face-to-face?
We're getting there, yeah,
Foreman and all?
yeah.
Okay.
Allison is getting out there quite a bit, and I'm trying to get out there
Saw
at
that.
least once a week to.
That's
to
good,
meet
because
with
a lot of
the
times
companies.
questions come up,
Yep,
you know, you might not think of it until you see them, and, oh, I've got a question about that, and it leads to.
Judge, I walk over there on a daily basis. She's probably gonna lock me out soon.
Good. Well, don't lock him out.
No.
And I think something I've noticed and greatly appreciative of it is things can fall through the cracks when you have a transition. And I'm not seeing that happen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm seeing things pick up and go and move forward. So kudos to you and Allison both,
Thank you.
and all your staff in there.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a really great group of people over there.
The bridges that are listed on the, I guess, the information furnished to us, are these all bridges that have been identified through the state, what's it called, the state directory of bridges as needing to be replaced, or who's determined that they needed to be replaced?
I'm not sure how these ended up on the original list, because I
Okay.
haven't fully vetted that
Okay.
list yet.
Yeah.
That's
I know
pretty
we've
much-
got one on here that, we're talking about consultant, that we're really not, it hasn't been deemed needing to be replaced by the state. So, you know, as far as being able to prioritize what needs to be done, not be done, so.
Yeah, I think we should probably sit down, you know, each of us precincts and talk about what's on that list and where it's at and see
Right.
what your feelings are, especially because Commissioner Wilson is new, so he wasn't involved in any of those choices in the first place.
You know, I know a lot of times the state will say, this bridge is safe, if you add
Weight restrictions.
add weight restrictions or add riprap to here to stop erosion, and it ends up on here as maybe needing to be replaced, and that's not necessarily the case. That
Right,
we just- So I think we can help ourselves
Yep.
knowing that.
No, I will definitely make a point of going through all the bridge reports and comparing that to what's on the list.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, any other questions?
Now, I do want to make a comment.
Okay.
I've never seen precinct 2 on this list of projects that are currently underway.
Yeah, so many times. Yeah.
Yes, and so that's, we all knew that we needed some help out there, and you guys are doing it.
He's getting after it.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
He brings me more work every day he walks into the office. so.
We got a meeting,
Do you take donuts when you go over there?
No,
He doesn't?
Amy's,
now, like my executive assistant, now you two and you, they're power rings. They're not donuts. Power rings.
Oh,
Yes. You should have labeled that when you had your business, power rings.
power rings.
Power rings, I've never heard that before.
And neither.
Okay, very
It's
interesting.
less derogatory for the police world.
Oh, okay.
Power rings.
Okay,
Oh, my
there's no
goodness.
other sensible comments. Is there a motion to approve for recording purposes?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion second. Any other discussion? Well, discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass.
Thanks, Amy.
All right, item D3 is County Veteran Service Office. I'd like to call on Steve.
We're gonna drill you, Steve, so be ready.
Morning.
Good morning.
I guess as far as the reports that y'all have, that's kind of a normal reporting that we give you. As far as anything new or something that's not on the report, we are in our efforts to make sure that the changes that are going on in the federal government are not affecting us locally. We've kind of gotten more directly involved with the VA. And one of the areas is the research arm of the VA, the Center of Excellence. And they have numerous projects that involve TBI, PTSD, research and development. And one of the projects that I'm really glad to kind of let you know that we've kind of gotten involved in is called the Gateway Project. And what that is, it's a research that they're conducting with biomarkers where they take your blood and they see exactly where any impurities or any abnormal cells may be due to a mental injury or some other injury. And then they're also taking a psychology where they give you an assessment and they kind of have you explain your condition, your mental condition of what you may have experienced or what you, even if you didn't experience, they want anyone that wants to get into the project because they need They need, with a lack of a better word, they need a brain that is not been affected by traumatic brain injuries or post-traumatic stress. And then the last thing is a neuro science where they actually do an MRI on the brain after doing that assessment to see what the abnormalities may be in regards to what you've addressed to them and what your blood shows. Because, and it's right here, you know, at RVA, and it's a big breakthrough. There's only 3 in the country. One of them is polytrauma. This one happens to be returning veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan. And so we've kind of got directly involved with that. And it's been a very good project, because it's the data that's being gathered is really for the future wars that we may have that involve explosions, IEDs, and other non-traditional type weapons that are now used. So it's they're just trying to get ahead of the game on that, because we still do have a high suicide rate, which they have an initiative there too that they're working on. Because we're finding out that now that there's a post-combat setting, we're having veterans that are just getting out of the service, and between the first 6 months to 1 year, because of the transition, there is a tick of suicides there, as well as pain. There's just a lot of pain, whether it's mental or physical or both. And so it's also causing still a steady suicide rate. So they're trying to find out how that can be properly addressed before they transition out of the service and get back into society. So there's just a lot of things.
Gateway? Is that what you
Gateway, yes, sir. Gateway project, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Steve, is that similar to what they do with athletes in that CTC?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. In fact, some of the researchers are, they're doing the same. They're actually working with
Fantastic.
NFL.
It's about time that they connected the two and.
Yes, sir. Because the biggest thing is the explosions,
Yeah.
the concussive blasts, and then the reoccurring concussive blasts of a mission that involves the forward edge of the battle area and the advancement of constant advancement, and then running into those type of situations and still going forward. And so it's really has been and I noticed it, and where I got involved was through the jail. I see a lot of undiagnosed TBIs and really some PTSDs that involved bad conduct discharges because they were not diagnosed. They didn't know what had happened, and they started self-medicating, or they started getting agitated because there's neurobehavioral issues, cognitive issues, as well as maybe some physical issues and mental issues. So in between all that, just trying to determine what is exactly needed to help them with treatment. And some of the treatment that is already being offered is not the treatment they need. And so we did have the congressman come in last week. I went over there and helped support the whole project. And the congressman came because, like I said, we're trying to make sure we keep it funded and we keep it on the forefront. And so he was there, and they were able to see. And I really would invite all of you, maybe individually, to actually go and see what they're actually doing there, because it is a breakthrough that is.
Where's that taking place?
It's at on the campus here, the Dorsmere campus, Building 93. Yes, sir. Yeah, and I could schedule a time, and you could go, and I'm telling you, you'd be very impressed with what's going on.
Please do that. I'd like to.
Okay.
Yeah, and
see that.
Steve, I don't know. Back in my day, it was the Form 6. Is it still a Form 6 out the jail? Do you get any calls from the jail if there's is there anywhere on the Form 6 that we put that they're veterans?
Yes, sir.
There
Yes,
is?
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Because
There's
I don't
actually a
recall
report.
that back in my day, but maybe they added that.
Right. No, it's evolved to where now there is a report that
That's
goes
awesome.
in.
Yeah, that's good. That's
Yes.
good, because
Yes, sir.
that way you can get. You know,
And we
that way-
still handle claim requests through the jail with apportionments, because we don't want somebody to get an overpayment. You know, a lot of times the way the VA system works with benefits, if you do not notify them that you are incarcerated after the 61st day after conviction, anything after that is considered an overpayment.
Wow.
And so it does put the veteran or their family at a disadvantage
Sure.
if they do not notify the VA, and then they do get hit with an overpayment and have to pay it back. So,
Gotcha.
yes, sir, we stay pretty actively involved with that.
Good.
All right, Steve, anything else on the
No, sir,
report?
that's one, I just wanted to let you know that's
All right,
what.
any questions for Steve? Any more questions, comments?
But I will make sure and get that scheduled.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, I'll stay in touch with emails.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, is there a motion to approve Steve's report for recording purposes?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion made and second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
D4 is maintenance.
Yeah, on D4.
Sorry, Judge, go ahead.
Well, I will point out that the reports here, Michael Graham and Sean Nixon are delivering federal property back to another state that couldn't be mailed, but said if we have any questions to reach out to them, or we'll get Dustin to ask any questions that might come up.
Yeah, and Judge Major Ives messaged me that he's on too, just in case there's anything he can help with.
All right? Okay.
Motion to approve the maintenance of equipment monthly activity report.
All right, I'll second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass.
Right, D5 is purchasing. Ken?
Morning.
You look different out there. It's lighting, I guess.
Shining hair. As usual at the first of a new year, we have a lot of bids that go out, so we had quite a few of those that we processed. Some of the larger ones, we worked on the county hazard mitigation plan update. And I will say I've been working with Tim and Ryan. Amy's been involved, Reagan's been involved, Dustin in the background, where we're trying to get all the information to our consultant H2O for them to make their plans on getting the updates done. So we had a meeting with them yesterday. We had a meeting with Tim to try to coordinate all that information. But we also have the group health insurance bid out right now. We had a request to delay that opening a week, and so we've moved it from May 2nd to May 9th for that bid opening. And we had a big bid for the portable stalls for the Extraco Events Center. So we had to do a bid on that. The company sold those weren't on any kind of cooperative agreement, so we had to go through the process.
Right.
We had originally in the, for Road and Bridge 3 around the tower, we originally had a fence built around the tower there. And somewhere in the process, that fence got taken out, and we just kind of put bollards up for protection. But then Will came back and said he would like to have that fenced off. Well, they already had another project fencing that we were doing, that maintenance was taken care of. So I let maintenance be aware, and we got that all coordinated, and we had a fence built. Well, I may have made a mistake. I did not contact DPS in that process, and they're a little bit upset with me. So
We're just not checking with them, or because the fence is, you gotta have the fence.
I understand.
That kind
Well,
of equipment and all that, yeah.
yeah, they're asking about some changes to the fence that we put in, and I'm going to have a meeting with them to see what that entails and see if it's reasonable or not. Just to share, I may be coming back. They did request a double gate, which I actually kind of had that in the plan for a double gate. We only put in a single gate, and they may need the more room for their equipment. I don't know. I'm gonna, like I said, I want to talk to them and see what this entails, and,
Okay. See if
and
they have
I
any
may
money.
be asking for more money, so, yeah. Let me see, we got the underground storage tank removed
Yeah, I
back here
saw that.
behind the courthouse. Other than that, that's I believe the big things I've got going on. We do have some bids in our future when we get the plans. We're still waiting on the plans for JP5. And I got a request from Sheriff's Office. We may be doing a bid on towing services. So I'm trying to
What?
put some towing
Okay.
services. We've never had that. We've always done a rotation, but they're looking at maybe trying to find one service provider with storage so that we can, if we have a evidence vehicle, that it can be stored and overseen in a good manner. So that's about the size of my report, if you have any questions.
Okay, any questions?
No questions, but comment on precinct 5 addition. I know it, at least a year and a half when we approved the
That we do that.
addition to that, and we still haven't turned any dirt, have we?
No, sir. Well, and again, we're putting the pressure on the engineering office to get us those plans. And TJ can speak more to it.
I know he
but-
can, TJ's mentioned it before, but I just think that's borders on ridiculous, and it's not our fault. It's third-party vendor that we're using that's created the situation, and it's.
Even though we use the local company, the plans are coming out of the Dallas area. So, again, we'll stay on top of it.
I know.
And, you know, that this may be, we've talked about it before, this is probably creating changes in our future.
Yeah.
On
Before we move forward. Yeah,
before we move forward.
I understand.
All right. Any other questions, comments for Ken? All right, is there a motion to approve his report for recording purposes?
So move.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any other discussion? No other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass.
D6 is maintenance of buildings. TJ?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You bet.
Good deal. So you have before you our typical quarterly report. Nothing too crazy going on. It's just been steady. You know, we're keeping our nose above the water at least most days. Lots of exciting projects going on. As Ken had kind of mentioned, the JP5 project is kind of weighing out there. So we are anxiously awaiting those plans so we can get that thing out to bid and get the ball rolling on it. ARPA, we're neck deep in trying to get new rooftop units put on out at the jail. They finished up all the gas piping. So the next phase is as the units hit the ground, they'll start lifting those up and getting those put into place. Juvenile is already up and running. I think they've completed at least 4 units to date. So they're continuing on that one. The 25th Street project, which is kind of our next big one that we're going to wade off in neck deep, that will kick off next week with some small demolition, and then we'll follow it up with some abatement the week after on some of the flooring that we got to take care of over there. All in all, it's just steady. You know, it's business as usual. So between construction projects and repair projects, we've got plenty to keep us occupied.
Hey, TJ?
You guys have any questions on any of them?
On projects currently in process and percentage of completion, the ARPA HVAC is 20%. We're gonna get under the wire on the deadline on that, aren't we?
Absolutely. Well, so the units themselves, I'm really not too concerned about. Of course, our biggest lead time item on that project is the jail generator. It had about 125-day lead time on it. So it's going to be right down to the wire for that particular piece of it. But that'll be the only piece of it. Everything else will be completed in time and ready to go.
For the ARPA deadlines?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What did we end up doing with that generator that we took from the Heart of Texas tower site?
We've got it stored over at Cobb's in long-term storage. Of course, that's an enclosure generator, so it's you really got to have the appropriate setting to put that thing in.
Okay.
Are
Of
you
course, we're
saying,
always we're gonna hang on to it.
when you say enclosed, you mean it's got to go inside somewhere?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay.
It's gotta go inside.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and then part of, the downtown jail project, the new Justice Center, we've got the old diesel generator that sits on top of the annex building that is still in fairly good shape. It hadn't been actuated in a number of years. It's just been sitting up there idle. So part of our plans is to actually swing that thing down because it is a very usable generator and we could put it on another facility with no problem. So that's kind of one of those things. Anytime we pull a generator out, we definitely do our due diligence and keep it if we can.
Okay. Any questions? Any other questions? All right, if not, is there a motion to approve TJ's report for recording purposes?
So move.
Second.
Got a motion second, any other discussion? No other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass.
And if it's all right, Judge, we've got Judge Swanton online with us. If we could drop down to item D11, this is the specialty courts report. So Judge Swanton.
Yeah. I think the camera's not, there you go. Morning, Judge.
Good morning, Judge. How are you doing?
Fine.
Apologize for being a little bit late. We're in the middle of some employee evaluations, but hopefully you all had a chance to look at our reports. I know it's somewhat lengthy, but I know you all have a busy day, so I'll try to be pretty brief. I wanted to report some really good news. Recently, our recovery court was named the DWI Drug Court of the Year. So that we were really proud of that. And I think that team, Judge, just does a tremendous amount of really good work for the county. I think all the specialty court staff members do, but that court at least was singled out by the state. And so we're proud of that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And Judge, I know you and the commissioners are well aware of the hard work that Amy Lowry does for all three of our specialty courts. She was named a specialty court person of the year in terms of her support for specialty courts by the Texas Association of Specialty Courts. She received that award at our seminar that we went to down in Corpus, our statewide meeting. And so I couldn't be any more proud of Amy. She does so much work for the county and for these courts in terms of just her day-to-day activity and, her grant work and trying to get us money to help support our courts. So I wanted to make you all aware of that award that she received also.
Well, and congratulations to her. We're very aware of the fine work she has done in the past and what she's doing now, and look forward to working with her in the future. We really appreciate outstanding people representing the county.
Thank you, Judge. I also wanted to report, as you all know, our grant funding kind of is in a state of flux right now in terms of some of them being on hold as a result of some decisions made. And so it's a little bit of a source of consternation for us right now. We don't quite know what funds might be available from time to time. Again, Amy's working really hard to try to coordinate all that with the federal government and some state agencies, but we've gotten some relief from that recently, and so I think things might be settling down a little bit in that regard also.
Okay.
So we're hopeful that will continue to be a source of funding for us in some of our programs. Other than that, Judge, things I think are going really well in all three courts. I think things are going well also in the mental health court services. Shada Wilyoung, as you know, really does a great job in that department also in coordinating with everything we need to do, and is processing a lot of cases. It's always surprising to me how many mental health folks who have issues are out in our county, and she deals with that on a daily basis. And then finally, our MAC program continues to evolve and work hard in trying to coordinate with competency issues, trying to get folks out of jail and their cases processed a little bit faster so that we can save the county some money, not housing them in jail, but they can either be out in the community, either receiving some support for their mental health issues or substance abuse issues. We're trying to continue to develop things in that court also. Other than that, Judge, I'd be happy to answer any questions you or the commissioners might have.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, when I see it, Judge, it always impresses me, it amazes me the joint effort of so many organizations and groups that make specialty courts work, and just a tip of the hat to all of those organizations and persons involved in those organizations that make the specialty courts what they are. So truly appreciative of it.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And as you know, I continue to compliment you all on your commitment to the funding and care and concern for those folks who have mental health issues. But you're right. There are so many different agencies in town that coordinate, work together, trying to do that sort of work.
Absolutely.
Well, I was in Austin yesterday begging for money, and had to do with trying to boost up our mental health efforts here in McLennan County, and there's no doubt that more emphasis is being put on addressing mental health issues across the state. We're at somewhat of a disadvantage if you look at the state-run centers and where they're located. There's a big void right in central Texas. And,
Yes, sir.
And so, and talking to Bell County Judge David Blackburn, we have a lot in common between Bell County and us. And Jessica Addis, Chief Deputy Blossman, and myself called on numerous elected officials, senators, and congressmen, and they all are very focused on trying to improve things. There will be 1,000 new beds come on in the state this coming year, but we have 400 mentally health involved people at our jail right now. So they won't all need state beds, of course, but just to show you that the state is way late in trying to catch up on what we need to be doing to address the situation. But I appreciate everything y'all are doing, and also, by the way, again, publicly appreciate you covering for me on probate court when I have to be out of town or other places. So do a great job, and appreciate that too.
Thanks, Judge. I'm always happy to do that. And on one more positive note, Judge, after listening to the construction report this morning, I can report that we don't have any construction going on, and we're saving the county lots of money in that regard overall.
So noted.
So,
all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your support.
All right.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. Any, no other questions? Is there a motion to approve Judge Swanton's report for recording
So moved.
purposes?
second.
All right, we have a motion second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. May I be excused?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor.
All right, D7 is pretrial services. I'm not sure if Judge Bain happens to be in the courtroom, but
No,
the
he's
report's in
not.
your packet.
Yeah. Reports in the package, and if you have any questions, well, you can contact Judge Bain, or Dustin will help get the questions answered. So there's a,
Motion to approve D7.
Second.
all right, motion made and seconded for recording purposes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass.
D8 is health services. Heather?
Hello, good morning.
I will say, if you've not attended one of the specialty court graduations, you should. I attended the last one, and it's, they always do such a great job of telling us the testimonies, but hearing them in person is impactful.
I tried it.
Been to one, yeah.
When Judge Hodges was here, I did attend, but I'm gonna try to attend some here fairly quickly.
There's
It's
way more people
inspiring.
than I
Yeah.
expected. It's just, and there's organizations that participate in it with giving, and it's a really neat thing.
Yeah.
So a normal report before you. This quarter, we've spent some time coordinating with some new organizations. Specifically, I'll start with just in-house. McLennan County Sheriff's Office has been great in working with us with the Jail Continuity of Care Coordinator. We've been able to create a partnership with them to where we're actually sending eligibility specialists in the jail to do enrollment for county indigent whenever we're working on a continuity of care process for discharge. So when someone's being released, we actually went as far as partnering with the Meyer Center for this, and then not knowing a month later the Meyer Center Clinic was going to close. So we had actually gone so far as to create a partnership with them where we were getting them enrolled in county indigent and then creating doctor's appointments for discharge once they were released from jail, and then the clinic as part of the closure with Waco Family
But
Medicine.
didn't they consolidate some of that over at the, old Providence area?
Right.
At the main campus?
Move the services over.
Yeah.
But I think that clinic was unique because it's attached to the shelter, and so they were already familiar with some of those folks, so that kind of created a closer partnership, not to mention then housing and other resources were right there. So they weren't having to go across town for medical services. They
Right.
were going to be getting them where they were getting all their other services right here downtown.
Right.
We'll come up with a workaround.
Okay, thank you.
But a lot of effort went into that and a lot of great partnerships. People sitting at the table willing to help wherever they could.
Good.
Also with the Sheriff's Department, we have coordinated with the Criminal Intel and Criminal Investigations units to assist our pauper cremation program. There's rare occasions where we have unclaimed that we just really struggle to find legal next of kin. And so Chief Deputy Blossman enlisted his guys to help us in the event that we have some of those more difficult cases. So that's a huge asset to the department. We've also recently created a coordination effort with Baylor Scott and White Hillcrest where we're going out to the hospital and we're doing enrollment for county indigent for people that are inpatient. So what happens a lot of times is we'll receive a referral from someone that's in the hospital. Well, then by the time they're released from the hospital, we have a hard time connecting with them and following up for enrollment. So we're actually going to go out to the hospital, do the enrollment on site while they're still inpatient. We've already started that process. We had our new claims administrator start the end of last quarter, and I just wanted to give a special thanks to HR for their help and recruiting, going through the interview process with that person. That candidate has been a huge asset. And a special thanks to the court for allowing us to have those, that 1 month of overlap between the exiting, retiring claims administrator and the oncoming. That proved to be completely successful, and we're very grateful. There's not been,
What's the name, what's her name, the claims administrator?
Pam,
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
yes. I'll bring her by one day to meet you. Let's see. And then also special thanks to the court for the approval of the reclassification of that office coordinator position. It's been posted. We've gotten some applicants and we'll start interviewing in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, good luck. Well,
As part of the new claims administrator coming on, we've changed just a few processes in-house to kind of streamline and increase productivity. And one of those is we added a provider portal link onto our website so that providers that are checking eligibility or claim status now can do it electronically instead of us taking so many of those phone calls. That might not sound like a big deal, but it's huge in our office, so. And then moving on, I included our recent client satisfaction survey results, something that we were proud of. We think we do a really great job, but it's nice to get feedback from the community,
Sure.
from the people that we're serving. And so we had a 98% recent interaction that said that they thought our team was doing excellent. So we measured a few other things in there that I thought was neat, but that was the one thing that we were really proud of. We're going to do a different survey each quarter. So this one, we're focusing on PCP utilization and transportation. So how they're using transportation and PCPs. So I'll give you some
yeah,
feedback
I'd be
on
real interested on that, because of McClellan County Rural Transportation Group, any information you can give us on, how it's being utilized and what, additionally, if you see deficiencies, let us know. And so we can put that in our planning for the year.
You bet. Moving on, numbers are steady, no concerns with anything there. Budget-wise, in all areas, we're coming in under budget so far this year. So expenditures are looking good. And I think that's all the major stuff.
Okay.
We've been busy.
It looks like that, and I appreciate it. I noticed how many community partners that you're either serving on committees or being involved with, and that gives you a good perspective of the community as a whole. And I appreciate that. And we want you to volunteer, but you can raise your hand too many times, so manage that. I know you will.
Yes, sir.
And where it works for your department. Y'all are doing great. Appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Zip codes. Is that indicative of where a large percentage of your clients seek services?
Oh, goodness. So it's funny you asked, not funny you asked, but Dustin and I actually did that zip code survey project when we were assessing the 25th Street building, and you would think I would remember our top zip code served. Dustin, do you happen to have that?
Bet he does.
I remember it and I can look for it as I'm talking to.
Well, that's
but,
okay. I
76
just noticed 05, and it
Well,
seems
oh,
like
oh,
05 was one of the
It is,
top
it is
areas.
one of
But it's
them.
closer now. Once you move, it's
Right.
closer than it is now.
It's between the two zip codes that have the most clients.
Yes,
It's
Okay.
within 2 blocks, sir.
Okay, I was thinking there was some correlation there.
yes, but 76705, if I remember correctly, is not our largest zip code served.
No,
It's
it's not.
03? Is it 03?
It was 76707 ended up being the highest. Then it was 08. And then I think it was 05. And I'm looking for one.
Okay, that's right.
And these surveys were completed by folks that came into our office.
Right.
So not all of our clients come into the office.
Us people in 05 are doing much better.
Yeah.
Is that where you are, 05? That explains a lot. Okay.
Remember the 05ers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Explains a lot.
he's close. It's close up there.
So here's that graphical
Yes.
representation we worked up. So you can see 7607 had 637 clients. 08 was 424. 76710 was 403. 06 was 537. 05 was 152. And then just kind of spread out throughout the county.
Okay.
Where did I get 03 from?
I don't know if do we have a 03?
Oh, no.
Maybe that's just, maybe we'll have a new one.
Do we have an 03?
There is,
In my mind, I guess we do.
so we matched up the transportation routes, and we're between 2 transportation routes. Maybe a discussion about maybe modifying one of those, I don't know if we can, but they're within a reasonable distance either way, from one zip code to the other, as well as I recall, but we'll have those discussions with transportation about that.
And I think it'd be great for us to be on a bus route, but I don't think that the location where it's located between the 2 bus routes is going to impede our services now, because
Okay.
that's how we are now.
Yeah,
You know,
okay.
So it's not going to be this huge change, so.
Yeah.
And I know you asked about any legislative things that impact the department, and there's nothing specifically for county indigent, but there is a bill that relates to the establishment of a grant program potentially to support the disposition of deceased pauper bodies. So if that's created, we'd have to apply for it, and, you know, there's a whole process with that, but that's the only thing I found specifically as it relates to the department.
Okay. All right. Any questions anyone have? All right, is there a motion to approve Heather's report for recording purposes?
So moved.
I'll second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, and we'll move on to item D9, information technology. John?
Morning.
Morning.
I wanted to start this morning with our highlights. As you see in your packet there, the Office 365 Phase 2 has been completed now. That added about another 1,000 folks to our G3 licensing. We have about 150 left now for Phase 3, which will be next fiscal
You answered my
year.
question. How many phases are there?
3.
Okay.
IT's moved into our new temporary office space. Thank you. Also, the jury manager project has gone live. And we also hired our IT office coordinator, Tammy Harden. She started on March 12th. Working out very well so far. Some challenges we're having, when you move, there's always the chaos of moving. So that's delayed us a bit. They're still doing construction downstairs to try to get that space ready for us. So that'll take a little while.
So that's why y'all are in temporary right now, is because the first floor is not ready for you?
Correct. Yeah, we've got everybody crammed upstairs.
Okay.
Ironically, are already more space than we had in our previous, so.
Even, right, yeah.
It is what it is. And you've seen me in here most of the commissioners' court meetings because I don't have an office right now, but we'll work that out. But I did want to sincerely thank the court for having a vision to make that office space ours, and then also the 25th Street building. Obviously, a lot of departments needed more space. We all knew that. But it's something else to carry through with it and make it happen, and I do appreciate that.
Okay. How is it working out, getting yourself and the IT staff back and forth between here and your location?
That will be reflected in the budget in the form of another golf cart, probably a request, and then 2 vehicles. But that didn't start with this request, with this move. That was already an issue. We were seeing a lot of personal mileage stacking up for our technicians. But that's going out to the jail, sheriff's office,
Right.
JPs, constable
yeah.
offices.
They're the most in-shape department now.
That's right.
A lot of cardio.
A lot of our folks do walk.
Got a good suntan, everything.
I think 10,000 steps is everybody's goal now. We're all meeting it. But yes, those were already requests.
I know that's-
It hasn't changed much realistically. It's only a few blocks, 7 blocks away. It's run.
I know how far those 7 blocks are. I've seen those. Yeah.
But the one thing I could see that this move probably initiated was a second golf cart.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, we'll bring that at budget, though. We will not go outside of budget. That is not an emergency.
Oh, you were listening.
Moving on to the data. So our project management office, you see the numbers there. They're very comparable. The next page, projects by type, those are a quarterly comparison. Those are very, they're starting to stabilize. That first quarter that we didn't have great numbers, Q3 of '24, but the rest of the quarters we do, and you can see those are very comparable numbers. Busy is what I would put. And I'll just highlight a few of the projects on the next page. The projects completed this quarter. The body camera implementation for the sheriff's office, that one has been, it's taken a lot of effort on our part, and the sheriff's office is trialing body cameras for the first time, so that seems to be working out very well. The Motorola M500 implementation, those are the in-car cameras, and so they're instituting these new cameras for every new vehicle they get. They're waiting until they get a new vehicle, then they're putting the camera in it. And those do include the license plate readers, so we do have that technology available now to them. And the sling scheduling, because that's for the jail medical staff, that's allowed them to become much more efficient in their operations and scheduling. And that was being able to be done with our Office 365, so it's something we already own, so we didn't have to spend money in that regard for the software. Moving on to the project started, one of the bigger ones, the multi-factor authentication, that's in full swing. We've got our department purchasing, archives. I think we moved to a few constable offices or JPs so far, and we'll be rolling that out countywide, so every employee will eventually have their card they can swipe. The SO data sharing, that one's in process now. That one's huge. It's also going to leverage our 365 implementation. So currently, all the agencies that they share data with for cases, they are bringing in drives, thumb drives, and all this stuff, which is introducing a lot of risk, a lot of expense for all the agencies involved because they typically don't recover those. We'll be able to do most of it, not all of it, but due to the sensitivity of some of the stuff, but we'll be able to do it securely with our file sharing with SharePoint. That will save a lot of time, first of all, because they can do it online, and a lot of expense for all those things. And then the whole slew there of Tyler implementations that we're in the process of. Everything now is in process. We've started all the projects. We actually went live with, as you may have noticed, actually I sent it to you, Judge. I didn't want to send it to the whole court.
Yeah.
For open meeting regulation problems. But we went live with RMS today for the sheriff's office, 8:30 this morning.
Good.
And by all accounts, going well. We have a command center set up there at the sheriff's office to monitor all that and to have an immediate call if somebody, did have issues. The Tyler folks have 4 people on site to help us out with that, make sure it all goes smoothly. We were able to coordinate with the city of Waco dispatch, and we actually got the automated dispatch information now. So now when they get a call, they'll see it right on their MDT, and they can, then do the reporting or citations on their
Everybody that's on Tyler will
their
see
mobile
it.
device. Sorry.
Everybody that's on Tyler will see it. 'Cause
Correct,
Some
correct.
of those aren't.
The SO, well, they're on Tyler now as of today, so.
Okay.
Now, we won't go live with the jail and the courts until next August of 2026,
Okay.
July of 2026. So that information won't flow through yet. But once it does, then it'll flow through to the jail, then the court system and all that. But that's an important step, getting the RMS online today, along with their data archive. So they're also going to have a data archive from EDOC, so they'll have all the historical information they need when they need to do lookups.
And what is RMS revoke?
Sorry, Records Management System.
Record management,
I
okay.
apologize. It's called Enterprise Public Safety is the official name of it, but yes, we're going on to Tyler. Now, moving on to support breakdown, those are very comparable numbers to month over month, so there's nothing to comment on there really. And the request by department is very comparable. The one note I would make at Sheriff's Office, in the October, December, the Sheriff's Office requests are very high, and those have been cut by about half going into the Q2 of 2025. And that's due probably, we're making an assumption at this point because we only have 1 quarter's worth, or 2 quarters worth of data. But that's, we had approved, if you remember, we now have an IT technician dedicated to the sheriff's office. He now sits out at the jail. And now he's able to take care of a lot of things and do preemptive things that then don't result in a broken device or someone needing help. Obviously, we'll keep monitoring that and see how well that process is working out. They've already asked for a second technician, by the way. So they love it, the sheriff's office. But we do think it's working out very well. Moving on to the website, only a couple of small comments here. The tax office jumped up into position number 4, which is understandable during people trying to pay their taxes in January. And then also the juror, people going on the juror site jumped up to number 10. And that, of course, is due to the fact that we implemented jury manager during this period. It's now directing them, and people can go do self-service on the juror page instead of calling or emailing or coming in to try to reschedule and all those sort of things.
So it's fully implemented?
Sorry?
We're using the full utilization of Tyler's products?
So we did have a meeting with them recently. So we've implemented what we'll call 1.0 at this point. We just got it running. We've got the jurors signing up online, then coming in.
Yeah.
We're still doing a fairly manual, or the district clerk is still doing a fairly manual process when they check them in. They check them in electronically as we expected. But then when they're handing out assignments and that sort of thing, they're doing that fairly manually, doing it one by one, handing them the badge, that sort of thing.
So is it still the jury pool meeting and the?
Yes, they're all meeting in one place down at the.
Will that be eliminated once everything's fully utilized or not?
Yes, so the 2.0 version, if you will, or what we can do with it to make it even more efficient, is to fully utilize the system. And to do that, you would have to, well, one option, of course, is sending jurors directly to courtrooms.
And that's what the judges I've talked to would like to see, unless there's something you've heard that's not.
No, the ones I have talked to, yes, would like to see that.
I don't know why we don't move forward with it. So,
That's something I think we probably discuss with the steering committee, the Tyler Project Steering Committee, and see if we need to have a judges meeting or if we need to,
yeah,
decide to move that route.
yeah, that's why we made the decision, so I think that might be the next step.
And one of the things that affects that is how we're sending out notices, how we're sending out the summonses. Currently, I believe it's 8 weeks at a time they're sending out summonses. And the problem is occurring is they're allowing people to reschedule within that same 8-week period.
Yeah.
Well, they've already created the panels by then, so they would have to go manually add someone to the panel. Whereas normally, I guess what happens normally with the Tyler project and other counties is they only send, I believe she said, 2 weeks at a time typically. And when you do that, then, and some do 4 weeks, but you don't allow them to reschedule within that same period. You only allow them to schedule after that
Outside the
period.
period.
That way they can be automatically assigned to a panel through the software as it's intended. And that way they could be then sent directly to courtrooms because you know how many people you have for that panel. See, currently you have plenty of spots open because people have rescheduled out of your panel and that sort of thing. And that's kind of the thing they're doing on the day, on the Mondays. They're coming in, figuring out the panels. Okay, we have 3 people missing or whatever who have rescheduled. And they have to manually, again, add those people to the panel. It takes a bit of time, it takes a bit of coordination, and it obviously is a manual process as opposed to
Okay.
working smoothly through the automated process of the software.
Okay.
There's a couple other smaller things we could do with it too, like allowing the courts to create their cases in the software. Right now, the district clerk is handling everything, district clerk's office.
The cases.
Yeah, they're creating the cases, they're getting it manually from the courts, and then they're entering it into the system. So there are some options there, again, just for more automation later on. Moving on to accessibility, I won't say this is quite automatic for us yet, but we've been in the top 10 of our clients and over a 90% rating every time.
Excellent.
And that's due mainly to our AudioEye software that we have that keeps track of a lot of that sort of thing, and we remediate what we can. And the internet, the reason that looks slightly different is the pictures are just, one of them slightly squinched down to bottom. Those numbers are very comparable. And that's just internet bandwidth, people using the internet while they're at work. That's why you see those jumps in the valleys or the weekends and nights. Cybersecurity, we're at about 63% of our folks who need to do their yearly cybersecurity training. So if any department heads are watching, please encourage your folks to finish their cybersecurity training. Put a plug in there.
I felt like that was directed at me.
Yeah. I looked down, I didn't.
You notice I did not say elected officials.
Yes.
I've taken
Hey,
mine.
we got till August. There's no rush, right?
That's right.
I took mine third time through, I made 100.
I'll move on to archives. Does anybody have any more questions?
Yeah.
So our big project there is InfoLinks, as you've heard many times. That's where we're barcoding the files so that we can enter them in the system. Once we get them barcoded, then folks in all the departments can request their files electronically. It'll just streamline the whole process of them getting their files. Plus, our folks then, when they go looking for it, they can just, barcode, scan it, pull it. They know what they're pulling.
Yeah, anything we can do to make it more convenient to choose to use archives as a place to store rather than in their offices or other places or in other valuable space.
Yes, funny you should mention that. We'll be coming to court next next week to request that position that we had budgeted at $1 placeholder. But we'll talk
I didn't
about
say that by accident.
Good to know. The space available, you'll notice quite a big drop for Q2 as they moved a bunch of the district clerk files from the annex here, the basement. They moved a lot of them in there. So our net change in space is 1,584 linear feet, which is quite a bit. I mean, we've only tracked this for 6 quarters so far, but that's quite a drop. That was a one-time thing, though. That was a special thing that happened, so I don't expect that to continue. And then the space increase, as you can see what it's due to there, the district clerk civil and criminal files, quite a few more boxes than normal got put over there.
Yeah.
And you can see the file requests are typically, the biggest ones they say are and this is across all quarters, but it's typically the district clerk and JPs have the most boxes in and out or files in and out.
Right.
District clerk obviously outpacing most. And moving on to the legislative updates. Looking through there, almost half the bills could have some impact on IT one way or the other. But So House Bill 1, which was the DIR's budget, the Department of Information Resources for the state, that one's going to appropriations, so that looks good, that they're still going to fund them at a high level, because they're the ones who negotiate contracts that we typically buy off of. So that's always good news for us. We don't have to do anything per se, but it's good to keep our eye on that. House Bill 150, establishment of the Texas Cyber Command with the UT system, University of Texas. That one's important, of course, because cybersecurity is important to everybody, and they're starting to centralize that with the University of Texas system. And the DIR, of course, is involved in that, the Department of Information Resources. And that's a resource for us. Should we ever have a cybersecurity incident, that's a resource for us to pull from to try to help us.
Texas?
Or will be, I'm not sure. I think that one was set for
make any
September
comments.
1st, I want to say, of activity. But should that be passed, right now it's in the Business and Commerce Subcommittee, I believe.
Got to get voted out, well.
House Bill 657, that's requirements of publishing elections information, and how that affects us is, that one is actually altering the existing legislation. It says that we must use our .gov top-level domain to publish elections information. Now, we already do that, but they do have, and the only question I had with it, and I'll have to see how this pans out, is whether or not they require that top-level domain as the entry point, because currently we have a domain called McLennan Votes, and they redirect people to our .gov. And I just need to know if that's sufficient, because it is going to the .gov, and we have it on our .gov if anyone ever goes there. During elections period, that's when you'll see it there. And then House Bill 876 establishes the multi-state information sharing for cybersecurity again. The federal government we have this multi-state information sharing, MSI, SAC, which is for cybersecurity. But the federal government dropped a lot of the funding for that and the whole DOGE thing that happened, the Department of Governmental Efficiency. So the Texas state legislatures picked up the ball and said that we will be doing that sort of thing and funding that to some degree. I don't know what the level is, so again, that's a resource for us to pull from, both in preventing cybersecurity problems and also responding to them. So obviously, we'll be tracking that. House Bill 1007, elections, again, cybersecurity. What this one deals with is the data at rest and the data in transit, and it needs to be encrypted. Now, we're already doing things like that, but obviously, we're going to have to work with the vendor for the voting systems and make sure that VOTEC and whoever else we may or may not use in the future does this. House Bill 2028, also CSHB 2028, deals with open meeting regulations and is now requiring that it be on your landing page or your main .gov page. We already have this under control. It's nothing that I think would shock us. On our front page, we have the agendas and minutes link right there that people can go to, so we're already complying with this. And House Bill 2403, about the prohibition of contracts with Chinese companies for technology stuff. And this, they use some odd things in there, and it's been referred to state affairs, so we don't know where this one's going to land quite yet. As we already have fell in line with the prohibition against Chinese technologies and that sort of thing. I don't foresee this being a real problem for us. We just, again, keep our eye on it, because they keep updating the list of companies that they can or can't do business with. Sorry, that was my longer-winded version than I wanted of that. But,
That's good.
Any questions beyond that?
Any questions? That lengthy report.
Good report, John, good report.
Motion to accept report for recording.
Second.
Motion second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Mercedes, I'm gonna leave the meeting, and Commissioner Perry's gonna take over, and I apologize, Anna. I'll look at it on the recording. I know it'll be great.
Okay, I'll be sure to bring John later on that.
Yes.
10 is human resources.
Anna, you got 6 minutes. No, I'm just teasing.
I'll tell you what. Oh, man. I get confused every now and then. I've hit myself in the head a time or two. But
You want to hurt the mallet?
All right, I don't know if you'd like to get started.
Sure. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
We had pretty steady numbers this past quarter. We did have a few peaks here and there in certain areas, and so those are the areas I'll highlight for the court. Especially our Road and Bridge Precinct activity highlight there. Your teams were very busy this past quarter. Well, really the first part of this fiscal year. That first 6 months was a bit rough. We had a lot of exits, retirements, things like that. And I'm happy to say now that those positions are filled. I think we only had one more that was kind of in process or in a pre-employment status. And so we're now, I guess y'all's team are now just training, I'm sure. But it was a record turnover average this past fiscal year.
If you deduct or remove retirements, would that have looked closer to normal?
No, it was still high.
Would it still been high? Okay.
Precinct 4 would, for the most part. We just had a generational transition.
Yeah.
We just lost our most
Yes.
experienced people, and so I don't suspect we'll see that again in my time, hopefully, but,
We had, since I've been here, I've not seen anything like that. We had kind of been waiting for that shoe to drop for a little bit because we'd known for some time now there were years where folks were retirement eligible for quite some time. And then, yes, for your precinct, it just.
they chose to do it all at one time.
So.
And thank you and your staff, though. It was a very smooth transition getting
Great.
interviews set up, getting it done, so again,
Well, thank you. That's our recruiter, David Thompson.
he does a great job.
David has been a very big asset to me, in all this situations we have going on with you too. I appreciate it.
Yes, he's been very responsive from what I can see, so. We're past that now. We got vacancies filled, and there was also another kind of peak here was a good peak. There was a huge hiring push at the jail in the month of March. We typically don't see hiring numbers like that at the jail all at once, and so that was great to see in March coming off the winter break. So historically, winter break, or winter months rather, we actually experience lulls and dips in employment application numbers compared to the rest of the year. And this past year, actually, we didn't see that lull. The application numbers remained consistent, which is what we've been trying to attain, so that we don't see dips in hiring as a result of that. And so that was advertisement, and it helped us keep those application numbers steady through those winter months. And we saw a total, and I actually have to revise that number. I quote 14 jailer hires, but it's actually 16 jailer hires, 5 from the initiative the sheriff's office engaged with the recruitment agency, and then 11 sourced from our standard posting and advertisements. So that was exciting to see. So both of those peaks here resulted in kind of that decrease in the vacant positions that the county has. So we were happy to see that. Turnover overall for the county remains steady, and the other areas to highlight where we saw some differences this past quarter, we did have an increase in supervisory support provided by our office, and so that's when supervisors reach out to us because they need assistance in addressing an employee's performance or some sort of policy violation, things like that. We were very busy for this past quarter with that. And then we also which we like. It's a good thing because, I mean, whenever we're involved, it gives us an opportunity to thoroughly review those support requests and then, of course, take action appropriate for supervisor, employee, and then the county as a whole to mitigate risk. The other area to highlight, we got some very good feedback following our health plan review. We have data from 2024 that we were able to view, and they provided summaries for. When I say they, I mean United Healthcare, along with Hub, our consultants. And so overall, we saw a good increase in the employee use of primary care, which we've been trying to push for in our communications, and making that more accessible, letting employees know about their applications that they can download and to be able to easily communicate with those primary care providers and find the primary care providers. So that's, it was good to see that reflected in the numbers. Where we still have some areas to work, and that's our new target, kind of this coming, the remainder of this plan year, is communications on knowing where to go for any kind of urgent care. We still saw a high ER use or emergency room use, and so again, that's just gonna be attacked from the communication and education standpoint, both partnering with United Healthcare and then producing or developing our own communications. And then we upcoming have, Ken touched on this a bit, we're currently advertising our bid for our administrative service agreement for our health plan. Also a few of our ancillary products, that's disability and life, and we already received some communications of intent to respond to the bid from some providers, and so of course we'll be working closely with Hub, our consultants, and Ken to produce recommendations for the court on where to go with that. And then we're in the middle of our evaluation season. That's due May 1st. That's this week. Just putting that plug out there, but we've already received tons of evaluations from departments. And we are also in the middle, of course, of compiling our annual compensation data. We're taking that back on. Last year it was performed by a consultant, which they provided a lot of valuable information on their processes and how they collect information. And so, of course, we're incorporating that this year as we take it on our own. Those are the major points. If you, do you have any questions?
Well, we haven't had a whole, is that a good number on all the injuries claims? Is that workers' comp?
Oh, so we did have an increase there. So we've actually seen a steady increase to injuries reported, but they're minor. And the way we kind of place that value on them is the cost incurred per claim.
Right.
So they're relatively, the incurred cost is relatively low. And getting guidance from the Texas Association of County and our risk management contact there, that's actually what we want. We want supervisors to report injuries, close calls, even if it's minor, even if the employee is not going to seek medical treatment. And so we have been expecting and are happy to see that these reports are coming in and are increasing, and that they're remaining non-severe. You know, very few have loss of work time. They're able to return to work, and so it's creating a great culture of safety.
Check with TAC. The only thing I'm concerned with is when you get to where you're reporting all these minor deals, is I know in workers' comp, there's two ways you can be judged. It's by quantity, the number of them, and then by the cost. Yes. And if they're gonna end up hammering us at the end, we all had 46 claims or whatever the number would be. All right, do we really need to report everything then if you're gonna do that to us? Is there some of that we should just take on, maybe put them on notice, but never file the claim if we can?
And we do have processes in place for reports only
Okay.
that aren't submitted to our carrier.
Okay. That'd be the only concern
But I
I
don't
had
think it's a
about
bad,
us.
Legitimate concern.
yeah, I think it's a good idea to review that process to ensure we aren't over-reporting.
Okay.
Your two charts here, the line chart, showing average cost incurred per claim and then injuries reported, and then to the left, it enumerates the common injury types. How many of those were non-jail injuries?
Well,
Not very many, the majority are coming from the jail, but
That's
I
what
don't have that exact
yeah,
percentage off the
that
top
12
of my
and
head.
14 is probably coming from the jail.
That's what I would assume.
And did the number go up crazy? Can y'all remember when we took over the Jack Harwell Center?
Oh, it increased.
Yeah. It's got to increase.
It
but
got increased, I don't know.
Probably doubled maybe.
But
I don't know.
that's probably 26 of the total.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
It?
That's good.
Man, didn't even hurt that bad.
Nah, painless.
Other than the hunger pains, right? Any other questions or comments for?
Motion to approve the report.
Okay, have a motion. I'll second it. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Where do we stand now?
D12.
D12.
D12?
That's
D12.
Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service, and so no one will be in court, and that report is in your packet.
Yes, it was.
Hey, Dustin, I'm sorry. I thought you might have gone with Judge, or I would have brought you back in.
You're good, Commissioner.
We just need a motion to approve this for recording purposes.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Good? All right. Does anything else need to come before the court? If not, we stand adjourned.
Thank you.
I like to take
Recording stopped.
the shorter portion.
Recording stopped.